Hello and welcome to the Shea Hates Everything Podcast, where we talk about video games, movies, comics, and other shit that matters. My name is Shea, and today I hate that it takes me over 2 hours round trip to get to and from work every day.
And my name is Kyle, and today I hate that my wife is sick, and I don't know if I'm going to get sick too.
It's a psychological thing. The second you start poking holes, like, ooh, I'm feeling a little stuffed up, or oh, I feel a little scratch in my throat, you start justifying, and that's when your body gives up. This happens to me all the time. Anytime I'm like, oh, I think I might be getting sick, invariably I get sick. You have to say, no, I'm not getting sick, I'm totally fine, and then you will be fine.
Yeah, because it's the weekend. I'm not going to get sick on the weekend. That's bullshit.
Exactly. Exactly my reasoning. I have a coworker who she came into work and was like sniffling and sneezing and coughing like the whole morning. And I was texting Kelly and I was like, I swear on all that is holy, if I end up getting sick this weekend, like this, it's been a very long couple of weeks for me, guys. And this isn't a video podcast, so you can't see, but we are in our new home today, recording
Which is why
live.
You now have a longer commute to work.
Well, yes, it is way, way longer, and it is terrible, but it is my life, and therefore I must accept it, or I will be sad for a long time. But yeah, we've been moving. I'm still with the new job situation, and then at work, this past week, we had our yearly sales kickoff, and so for people that don't work in corporate jobs, which I'm jealous, it's basically like the yearly get-together of the sales team and the marketing team and the customer success team and the product team, and you kind of all get together, kind of realign on what's going to be your go-forward stuff for this year. And it's just kind of, there's a lot of rah-rah, we did great, but there's also a lot of training and everything else. And so on the marketing side, even though it was like my second or third week, I helped put together a couple of the presentations. So it was just a shit ton of work last week. And then this week, I had my first week of my new commute. Plus, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the kickoff, I had to be at work before 8 a.m. to make sure we were ready to go for 8 a.m. Then Tuesday and Thursday, we had happy hours after the event. So, it was 8 to 5, and then I stayed an extra hour and a half to 2 hours to, mingle with coworkers that I'm just meeting and a lot of people that are from out of state. So, it was just very long days. I had to get, I was texting you about this, Kyle, and I know it's not new for you, but I had to get up at 5:30 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday so that I could leave by 6:30. So that I could get to work by 7:45.
It's a bummer.
It was
that
miserable.
early.
Yes, and then get home at 8 p.m.
Yeah,
it was a very long week. Plus all the moving shit, which I won't go into a huge thing about the moving shit, but I do have to rant just a little bit. We were supposed to move with me and my wife, my father-in-law and mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and then we had two couples that are friends. Wife and her husband, and we had hired a dude who is a professional mover that we were going to pay $20 an hour to come here and help us. And he was, my wife talked to him on the phone and he was like, oh, you're going to have 4 guys? Because my father-in-law, he's had heart issues. We don't want him lifting heavy stuff. So he was going to help more the packing and everything else. So basically we were going to have 4 dudes. He was like, you're going to have 4 dudes. We're going to be able to get this done super easy. Well, the night before moving, one of our couple friends, wife and her husband, said they weren't going to be able to come because there was a friend emergency that was out of state, so they had to go last minute and do that. So we're not not mad, totally justifiable reason, but it affected us and was going to make it a little bit harder. And then on the day of, one of our other couple friends got there, the woman and her husband, and so him and I were moving a lot of stuff ourselves, waiting for the big dude to get there, and he was an hour late, and my wife was trying to call him. She couldn't get in touch with him, so she started calling other people, and now he's 2 hours late. Found out that he went to a funeral that day, which if true, yes, justifiable reason to not be able to help us, but we hired you to do this.
Yeah, you're an adult.
You're not even going to tell us?
You're responsible for communicating the fact that you will not be there.
Yes. So, instead of 4 guys, one of whom is a professional mover, we had 2 guys. And I don't want to throw the other guy under the bus, but I'll speak for both of us and say that the other 2 guys that were supposed to be there are much bigger and stronger than him and I are. So it was the 2 weaker dudes. It was just 2 guys, 2 of us, that moved everything. And then right as we were finishing our packing of our apartment, Kelly was like just desperately calling any friends, anyone she knows, begging to get people there. Because legitimately, with just the two of us doing everything, we would not have been able to do it. Like, it's a 2-bedroom apartment moving to a 3-bedroom home. We have so much heavy shit, like dozens and dozens of trips up 2 flights of stairs to move out. It was awful. And so we got one of Kelly's friend's little brother and just a buddy of his, whom I've never met, showed up and helped us finish the move, and then came to our new place and helped us unpack. So it was like that fresh set of young, like 23-year-old legs that like motivated me and my other buddy, who are both, I think he's like around 30 as well. But like, we're getting old. It's weird to say 30 is old, but it feels like it. So anyway, I said long story short, but that was still a long story. But we got it all done. But this week has been awful, just exhausting with everything going on. And so coming into this weekend, this is my like relax weekend, and we were supposed to do all of our cleaning at our old apartment last night on Friday night. And we weren't able to because we didn't have a vacuum cleaner, and it was just exhausting, and we still had a bunch of shit left over that I had to pack up. We had a bunch of like old wood. We had an old bookcase that I had to tear down and throw away all the wood. My wife used to do graphic design on mugs, and so she had 3 huge boxes of mugs that we needed to get rid of still. So that was like a huge thing in and of itself just last night, and we weren't even able to finish. So now we have to go back on Sunday to finish the cleaning. So I just can't get rid of this fucking place. And all I want to do is just relax and chill. So that's the long story of why I wanted to make sure I wasn't going to get sick for this weekend.
Yeah. You can relax and chill when you're dead.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Be chillaxing up in heaven. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
That's the next time you'll be able to relax.
Maybe when she's like 18. Well, actually, no, because we're going to have another kid after that. So it's probably going to be like 23 years before my kids are totally gone.
And then you won't be relaxing because they'll be calling you every half a second with stuff they need.
Nah, I'm gonna make a shit ton of money so that I can like retire after my kids go to college. And like, yeah, they'll call me, they'll need stuff, I'll visit them, blah blah blah. But like, I won't also be working. I'll be chilling.
Fair.
That's the plan.
Okay, that's fair. But yeah, I don't know. If I was there, man, I would have done it all by myself. I would have moved your entire apartment by myself.
You say that, but dude, it's not that easy.
I'm a moving monster.
I've moved a bunch in the past 5 years. I've moved almost every year for the past 5 years. Plus, I've helped all friends and family move multiple times.
Yeah.
I move like 2 to 3 times a year, basically.
Same here. I have all my friends that change apartments and get new places.
But my point is, it's not like some shitty apartment to another shitty tiny apartment. We're basically moving from a fully decked out, an overstuffed 2-bedroom apartment to a 3-bedroom home. We just have a lot of shit. It's not like a couch and a dresser and a bed and then you're done. Like, there's way more stuff that we had to do.
Why you gotta doubt me?
I'm not saying that you couldn't help.
Why don't
I'm
you have
saying you
faith
could not
in
do
me,
it.
Shea?
Because the other thing, Kyle, is going up those stairs.
Yeah.
And like we have a whole like path that goes up the hill instead that I thought would be a smarter way of trying to take things. And we had a hand truck. So like, oh, let's put the big dresser on the hand truck. I'll be pulling it up the hill and you be pushing it up the hill. And it wasn't as good of an idea as I thought. I thought it would be, well, maybe it was still better than trying to maneuver it around the stairs. But the problem with the hand truck on the hill, you can't stop and rest.
Right.
And that's what was the killer. Like, I think we were moving a big filing cabinet after we had already done the dressers and the bed and a bunch of the other big stuff, the couch. We were doing this big filing cabinet in the office. And literally, as I'm pulling it up the hill, my legs just literally gave out. And I just fell down. Like, it wasn't like, oh, I have to sit. Like, I literally just fell down. I have never experienced that before. And it was kind of terrifying to have
this
that.
This is what it's like to be old.
Well, like literally my body gave up. And I've never experienced that before. We obviously we could have used your help, but no, Kyle, you would not have been able to move all this shit yourself. You're not carrying a couch up a flight of stairs.
I don't know, man.
But it's over. We still have a lot of unpacking to do and settling in, but all the big stuff is where it needs to go. The TV set up, the PS4 set up. I set up the computer this morning, obviously, because we're recording this podcast. So the most important things are done. I have all my comic books. They're out in the garage, which sucks. But I set up like one of those little metal stands that are like multi-tiered kind of thingies, and so they're not on the floor. Should be good. Feels good. I'll feel much better in like a month, but right now it feels okay.
Yeah, I remember when Kara and I moved into our house. I mean, we still have parts of our house. We've been here for a year and a half. We still have parts of our house that are like
not fully unpacked.
This has not been organized yet.
Yeah.
So enjoy that process. There will always be a few boxes you've never gotten to.
It's definitely it's going by small pieces. Like I have a couple little things that I want to accomplish today while Kelly's at work. The thing that's hard, and this is more on me, my wife is such like a go-getter, self-motivator, I want to work and get stuff done, that she takes the lead with these kinds of things. Like the moving, obviously, I was going to do all the work no matter what because she's tiny. But especially being like 34 weeks pregnant, she really can't do much. And so even like cleaning or unpacking boxes, she just gets exhausted really quick, and she already tries to push herself too hard at work. And so whenever I am around, I like go overboard and saying, don't do this anymore, sit down, which just creates that much more work for me. I'm happy to do it, don't get me wrong. Happy might be the wrong word, but like I will do it. Yes, I will do it, but it is, I have to do more now than I would have if she wasn't pregnant. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. For sure.
But it is what it is. It'll get done. Probably by the time we leave this place in a year. But we're hiring movers next time. We've already had that discussion. We're going to put away a pocket of money just for that.
There's probably some boxes you don't even need to unpack.
Well, there are. We have some plastic tubs that are like, yep, you're going in the corner of the garage, or you're going in a little crawl space in the garage. We're not even going to open you. We don't even need to get to you. Which begs the question, like, why do we have that stuff? But that's life.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some stuff. Let's talk about some video games and some TV shows and some movies and some news. Because that's what we do on the podcast. First-time listeners.
Yeah, those are all
we don't talk about
do.
Moving for 2.5 hours. Trust me.
We can.
Yeah.
How long you got?
Probably in about a year, we'll be talking about it again, I would imagine. But hopefully this will be good because we'll have bought a house and we'll have a daughter, which will make it that much more difficult to try to move. So, there is quite a large video game release in between last podcast and this podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I shouldn't say... Damn it, I screwed up my own joke. Because it's Kingdom Hearts. Kingdom Hearts 3. But I wasn't going to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. I was going to talk about a different game. But it didn't release in between. I just played it in between. So it's going to be like, there's a big game that we need to talk about, that everyone expects us to talk about, and it's Gris. That was going to be the joke, but I ruined it for myself because Gris did not release, and so it would have been inaccurate. So
you explaining the joke is probably just as effective as the joke would have been. So
yeah, that's true. That's very true. I'm just going to blame it on being exhausted. Like any like shitty comments or bad hosting I do, I'm just going to blame it on being exhausted. And hey, that's going to be like a really repeatable excuse in about a month and a half. Like every episode, I'm going to be like, this is a shitty episode because I'm a dad now, and everyone will have to be like, oh, it's true. Like, you got to give me the benefit of the doubt. I'll get some like pity listens, pity downloads. So Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah.
We should talk about Kingdom Hearts 3.
Yeah, sure.
Jokes aside. We've both been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts 3.
Mm-hmm.
You've been playing even more than I have, and I've been playing a lot of it. What's your vibe? I feel like, it's gotten quite good reviews, which honestly has been sort of surprising. There have been a couple naysayers here and there, but by and large, like I'm seeing a lot of 9 out of 10s, even 9.5 out of 10s. People tend to be pretty up on this and saying, hey, it's a great wrap up to the series. It has a lot of fun new mechanics. The combat's really interesting, blah, blah, blah. So where are you on that spectrum?
I don't know that I like it.
Okay. That's actually, well, not surprisingly, because we disagree on a lot of different things, but that's not where I am at all. I'm not really confused on whether or not I like it, because I'm very certain that I don't.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it is actually like pretty terrible where I am so far.
Yeah.
So I like. There's really nothing about it that I'm enjoying. So
I like the environments.
Mm-hmm.
The music is very good.
The music is good. I'm not as attached to it as I have been Kingdom Hearts music in the past. And, you know, like we mentioned last episode, I've only played the first and the second games. So there's a lot of Kingdom Hearts that I've never played. The main theme, or not even the theme, that like opening cinematic song, it's a Skrillex song with the chick that's done the other ones. Like, I didn't hate it. I don't know if I liked it, which probably means I didn't, but the original Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2, both of them were fantastic.
Right.
And so this is a step back no matter what for me. The rest of the music, I'm not like paying that much attention to it.
Okay.
And a lot of it feels somewhat familiar, which I guess it should. But like when I went to Twilight Town, like all that music felt really familiar, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
similar themes and whatnot.
Like the toy box music I really enjoyed for the Toy Story world.
I just finished that world, and like that part of it, I liked that world far more than I've liked anything else so far in the game.
Yeah.
And I'm still relatively early in the actual game itself. I mean, I've played like over 10 hours at this point, but just because there's so much more game to play, and I've really been trying to explore everywhere. So the first area, and we won't go into like story spoilers or anything like that, but the first area you go to is Olympus, and then Twilight Town, and then Toy Box World. Those are the first three worlds. And Kyle, you're much farther than I am. Or is Monstropolis the next one, or are there more?
No, there's Corona, the Tangled World.
Okay. And then Monstropolis?
Then Monstropolis or a different one, I think.
Okay. So you're pretty significantly farther than I am. The best thing that I can say is, of my time in the game thus far, I had the most fun and I was the most engaged in the Toy Box world. So I'm going to hope that means like I'm on an upward ramp and I will continue to like it more and more as it goes. The biggest thing, just to like put everything into categories, the writing is atrocious.
It's always been pretty bad, but this feels like the worst it's been.
The difference to me, yes, you are right. The writing has never been great and the story has never been amazing. Like, it's been interesting and fun, and like I've gotten involved in the central characters, you know, the Sora, Riku, Kairi thing in the beginning, and even secondary characters like Leon and all those folks. And each individual world had its own story. This, at least so far, I feel less of. And granted, Twilight Town wasn't even really a world in and of itself. It was kind of like a transitionary period where they do a little more story dump on you. But like Olympus, it didn't really feel like I had finished a story when I was done with that world. And similarly
the other
with
worlds
Toy Box.
do. The other worlds feel like they have their own events unfolding that are similar to like the movies and stuff. At least Corona was. It was very closely tied to the events of the Tangled movie. You're just kind of interwoven in that, much like how like the first couple of games had that. So it's like, the early game Kingdom Hearts 3 is weird. It's just weird because I don't think it's emblematic of where the game is heading from
that makes
where
me
I
feel
can tell.
Better.
Yeah, and I think that's why I don't want to say that I dislike the game. I feel like I need to beat it before I'll know if I really liked it or not.
Right.
Which is kind of crazy. But I'm really I don't like the combat. I don't like the combat. The first game's combat was the perfect mixture of button mashing, light strategy elements, like throwing in like a little bit of and the magic in the first game is by far the best magic, because like the magic in 2 all sucks, like it's not as useful, and the magic in 3 so far has not been great. And
I never use magic at all.
Yeah, neither do I. They have injected so many different systems into it, and it seems like that, like they're trying to funnel you towards using those systems instead of like just button mashing and like beating the shit out of some heartless and nobodies.
Yes.
Like they want you to use their Disney ride things, and you can turn those off, but I feel like there's a prompt for one of those every 5 seconds. And so like I use them because like, oh, I'm getting hit a lot, so they're use
effective.
That. Yeah, because they're extremely effective. They're very overpowered. And
they don't cost anything. Like they don't cost any magic or like okay. I feel like we're getting pretty scattered with like talking about it. So specifically on the combat part of it.
Yes.
There are a million different combat things. Like you have the partnered attacks, which Donald has one, Goofy has one, your guest characters have one, if not more, and those like will randomly pop up.
And
that
Donald
you
and
can
Goofy unlock different ones as you go.
Right.
So there's almost always a triangle prompt on the screen between those, and then there are their like Disney theme park ride attacks.
Yes. So there's like a pirate ship one.
Rides.
There's the teacups one. There's like a Splash Mountain one, which is actually kind of fun to do because you're in a water vehicle thingy and you're kind of bouncing around and you can jump and you're creating this path of water behind you. And then when time runs out, you like shoot all the way back up the water path that you just created. They all look amazing. Like all the visuals of the attacks and the special attacks all look really great. The problem is there are only X amount, and they happen all the time.
Every single time.
Like, I mean, I've been playing for 10 hours, but it's probably going to take me like 60 hours to finish this game. I've already seen, at least the ones that I have unlocked, I've seen all of them probably 25 times, if not more. Each and every one of them. Yeah. Like, I'm getting bored with them already, and I have so much more games still to play.
Yeah, and there's an option to reduce some of the animation times when you trigger those kinds of things. So I need to make sure I turn that on because it's very obnoxious at this point.
But still, even like doing them is getting boring.
Yeah,
and the partnered attacks, those happen all the time, and that's getting boring. When you're fighting, you have like you can
called
if you
change
have your
forms.
Right. Yes, that wasn't
the Keyblade can change forms essentially.
Right.
So as you're hitting enemies, you're building this meter, and when the meter gets to full, you can change form. Like basically, you unlock new abilities, and the Keyblade changes form into something else typically, and it like unlocks new movement options and all that stuff. So there's all of that, layered with all of your partner attacks, layered with all the Disney rides, and then there's flow motion, which is anything that's like shining or glittering or whatever. And you can hit a prompt and like run up a wall or like spin around a pole. And it's
I've done none of that.
No, me neither. There are so many fucking prompts. It drives me insane. I wish it was just the change forms. Like I don't even give a shit about the partner attacks.
Even on top of that, though, you also, with your specific Keyblades, you can get special attacks. So, like, one of the Keyblades, you have Firaga, and you'll randomly get a prompt to use Firaga, which is also triangle.
Yeah.
And so, like, you can literally have 4 triangle prompts all at once that you need to, like, cycle through. It's either with, like, L1 or L2 or
L2.
whatever. You need to cycle through them and make sure you hit the right one at the right time. And not even just the different forms that you get with the different the different Keyblades, but there's also, like, a Dark Sora form. Have you gotten that one?
Yeah, if you get, like, the crap beaten out of you too much, it pops that up.
Maybe that's why I get that one a lot.
Yeah,
because I get hit a lot because I'm not finding the movement of the game to feel very good.
Yeah, the movement does not feel good. There's a lot of animation priority, and like if you just tap on the left analog stick to move, Sora takes like 2 full steps. Yeah, it's total Witcher syndrome. It's really really bad movement. Or like in order to actually like walk a single step, you have to very lightly push up and hold on the left analog stick, and Sora will go into a walk cycle instead of a run cycle. But I found like I can't fucking line up myself on a save point because the movement is so bad. He just moves too much with a single flick. I have to like slowly creep it up to have him walk onto the save point.
And the flow motion makes it worse too because, which is when you mentioned liking the worlds, I like them all in theory. because I like the worlds of Disney, but moving around the worlds I do not enjoy at all, because you can run up walls, which feels really buggy, because you can run up, like they design it so you can do the flow motions. You can run up the wall, jump off the wall, run sideways on the wall, but if you run all the way up a lot of walls, there's an invisible wall at the top. So you can't like go on top of the roof that looks like you should be able to go on top of it. You can't. Some of them you can, but not all of them. And so it feels like I don't know where the game wants me to go a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that sense of exploration and discovery that I had more so in the first game than even the second one, of like, I want to look in every nook and cranny. I don't even know what nooks and crannies I can look in this game. Right, because so I'm constantly running into invisible walls.
The laws of each world are very clearly established. Like, you very quickly learn, like, okay, what I can do, what I can't do. Like, this is what the movement allows for. But in this game, there are so many options. It's overwhelming, and I never feel like I have fully canvassed an area. I never have that feeling where it's like, yeah, you know what, I think I got everything. Because, like, there could be some stupid-ass shiny wall somewhere I didn't run up, and then I really, really hate that.
And there's also grinding to get certain places, and there can be combat while you are grinding. Yeah, the rails. Like, there's just so much shit. There's a whole thing where you press R1 and you go into this, like, shooter mode where you target over guys, and then if you attack, it auto shoots at them. Ugh. Like, there's just too many. And this is a product of it taking them 13 fucking years to make this game.
Yeah.
This is, like, the tried and true process. Every single game that gets worked on for this long comes out and is a piece of shit, because after this long, they've run out of the ability to say no. They just want to throw more and more systems at the game, which is when I look at, hey, for the Final Fantasy VII remake, I don't want to play that game now. There have been too many examples of games that take 10 years to develop where there's way too much going on, and a lot of it's not fun. Like the little R1 to, lock on to dudes and shoot them, like, that's not fun to do. There's a whole other system where you do that and then you go over certain shiny things and press square and it teleports you to those things.
Yeah.
Like, that sucks ass. Like, it's not fun at all, and again leads to that, like, I don't know where I can go and where I can't go.
Right.
There's a whole taking pictures mechanic of these hidden Mickey symbols that you need to get. It's just so much shit that isn't fun. And it's a bunch of side stuff. Like, you don't have to engage with a lot of it if you don't want to. But as someone that has been waiting 13 years for this game, that wants to get the most out of it that they can, I'm not enjoying like a single second of what I'm doing. I'm not even finding the combat to be fun, because there's so much going on at once, and because there's so much repetition of all these different special attacks. I don't like it. The most fun I've had in combat was in the Toy Box world, because you get into like these mechs, and then it simplifies everything.
Right.
Because you just move and shoot, and you have a special attack, and that's it. And that's the most fun I've had with the combat. And it's not even the Kingdom Hearts combat. It's a separate combat system. Is there anything else on the gameplay? Because I want to get back to the story.
For me, I mean, it's just I feel like I'm getting hit in this game so much more than in any other Kingdom Hearts game.
Right.
And I also feel like those hits are doing more damage.
Way
I was
more
playing
damage.
on normal.
Yeah, same.
And I chose, like, in the beginning, I chose, like, the Guardian and, like, I would assume a defense focus. And I'm still getting the shit beat out of me. So I'm, like, casting. Also, I hate their magic system where it's a meter, and once it's exhausted, the whole thing has to recharge till you can use it. It was that way in the second game. I missed the first game's magic, where it was just a meter that filled. Each thing had a separate, like, segment cost, and then you just rebuilt it by taking damage or hitting enemies or picking up orbs. I hate this stupid full meter thing. It's so stupid. But yeah, I just I don't know. The game looks amazing.
See, and I don't even think it looks amazing, man. Like, it's very colorful, and a lot of the attacks look great, but the actual worlds themselves, and particularly like the cutscenes and the character interactions, it looks like they were working on this 13 years ago. Like the actual like CG cutscenes, I think look terrible. They look like PS2 CG cutscenes to me. The characters are all shiny and flat looking. Like where it looks like they're dolls, like they don't have pores. They're just shiny blank slates, like action figures.
Yeah,
I think the game looks kind of terrible a lot.
I don't know. I like the visual style, but yeah, I think visually it's strong. I think the music is strong, but minute to minute what you're doing in the world, how you explore the world, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around the experience as a whole, and that I just feel off balance most of the time, and that is just really
it doesn't feel
disappointing.
fluid the way that it should.
Right, because like the first game, I felt like it's easy to wrap your head around it. The second game a little less so. I think the environments weren't as well laid out or designed. I think it comes from them doing a little bit more verticality in a lot of the environments, and I think that kind of was a detriment. And then I mean, in this one, they even took that to the nth degree, and it just has served to make it a worse experience. I've heard like they did a really nice job wrapping up the story, and there's like all the threads are kind of tied up. So I hope that holds something for me, and I'm hoping that a lot of the other worlds are a little less vertical and just a little more traditional Kingdom Hearts.
Yes.
I don't know.
I can't believe I'm saying it, but I think I'm finding one of the more fun parts of the game to be the gummy ship. And like, it's not awesome, but that kind of just shows the low bar that I have for this game right now.
Yeah.
That like, because it's a little bit more of an open world-ish, where you choose how to fly around. There are a lot of, little zones where you can get XP or items, and there are little enemies that you can fight, or like turrets, and they have kind of vortexes that shoot you from one side to the other faster, and hidden special item containers that are kind of actually tedious. You basically just shoot a thing at the right time and it opens it up for you. And then the actual like dog fighting part of it is an instance where like you run towards the one enemy and it opens up a separate mini game that's more like what's the classic where you're like the tank moving from side to side and all aliens are coming down in the straight lines. What was that game?
Oh, Galaga.
Thank you, Galaga. It's like that, but in 3D, obviously. And then there are some times where you get to a world and they have to do a boss fight in the gummy ship.
Yeah. And
I guess like the reason I'm liking it more than the rest of the game is it's much better than the gummy ship has ever been before. That's really the biggest thing. It's not an on-rails Star Fox thing. It's like you have more freedom of movement, and you can ignore it entirely if you want to. And that is nice as well.
Yeah, you can just avoid all the enemy encounters, except for the
Just
ones
go
that
straight to the
happen right
world.
before you enter a new world.
Yeah.
There's always a boss fight thing.
Right.
But I'm wondering when that becomes too difficult to pass because you haven't been engaging in combat, so your gummy ship is too low level. I'm wondering when that's going to start.
That's possible.
Frustrating me.
But the story thing, I actually think the game is doing a surprisingly good job of piecemealing out the exposition. We talked last episode where you watched this really long video. I went and watched a 36-minute video where, like, in the first 5 minutes, I was like, okay, yes, this is all coming back. And then in, like, minute 6, I was already like, oh, boy, nope, like, no, this is too much. And I still had another 30 minutes of story left. They do little in-game recaps. They're like 6 little short chapters.
Yeah.
And those are like way more high level, but they at least show you the characters that you may have missed. So that was nice.
Right.
But like, I didn't feel like in the beginning of the game, they were like, here's everything that's happened before. It's happening at certain story beats where they're going to introduce one Organization 13 character then. Oh, in this one scene, both Ansem and Xemnas?
Yeah.
Yes, Xemnas are there together. And then, in this one, this is where they're talking about Terra and what happened where he got, taken over by Xehanort. Like, that stuff is happening relatively slowly, which I like.
Yeah, I think they have paced that well. It doesn't feel overwhelming in a way that I thought it might. And I think it comes down to them in a very hand-holdy way. Every time a new character comes into frame or a new event happens, they do like a little recap of like, oh yeah, that's just like when this happened and this did the thing, and like they all like the characters provide they do a little bit of narration and kind of provide some context for the things that are happening in a very hand-holdy way.
It doesn't come out of nowhere. Like it's not. It doesn't feel like an exposition dump. It feels like this flashback or this exposition fits what is happening right now in the game. It doesn't feel arbitrary.
Right.
So that part of it's been good. I'm still pretty confused with a lot of what is happening in the larger Kingdom Hearts story, but at least they're doing the best they can with as much stupid story as there is in Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah. Just know that Xehanort, he traveled through time and he got a bunch of different Xehanorts, and those are the 13 shards of darkness, and he needs 7 shards of light, which were originally going to be the Disney princesses, but now they're going to be something else. I don't remember, but
the biggest problem I'm having with the story, though, is the voice acting, and like mentioned, the writing being bad. And in past Kingdom Hearts games, the writing has always been kind of lame and cheesy at times, but the performances were good enough where like they carried them through. And I still think that Sora is fine, and obviously Donald and Goofy are good, and some of the side characters are okay. Like a lot of the Toy Box characters were pretty decent, and they had some good sound-alikes for the real actors. But like, not even being hyperbolic, the dude that is playing Riku is maybe the worst voice performance I have ever heard in a video game.
Really bad.
And I'm not even joking.
It
is
bad.
Unbelievable. Unbelievably bad.
Well, I mean,
and a lot of it is...
You've never played Ride to Hell Retribution.
Yes, so I'm saying of the games I've played.
Not worse than that, but...
Fair enough.
It is bad.
I think part of the problem is... the directing of the cutscenes, or maybe like how they edit them together.
Like every single line and interaction has an extra half a second of too much
on either
time.
end.
Yep, on both ends. It's like everything was recorded one line at a time in a vacuum, and they just couldn't splice it together effectively.
Yeah,
there's
no flow to the conversation.
No.
And a lot of the writing is bad too, don't get me wrong. Like that's certainly part of it, but just the voice acting has been quite terrible up to this point, which, like, if you have a confusing, overwhelming, sort of stupid story with bad dialogue telling the story, with bad performances delivering that bad dialogue of a bad story, that's not great.
No.
Like, that's not a great combination.
Not a good mix.
So... I'm also getting a little annoyed in like even in the first game, it was always cute and funny that Donald and Goofy like made fun of Sora, right? Like he was a bit of like a loser, he was a little bit dopey, but now that
they're really leaning into that,
like he's an idiot.
Yeah,
like
he's
it's
fucking
almost,
moron.
It's almost to the point where I'm like, I don't want to play as him,
right?
Because they make him sound like he's the sad sack,
like, horribly
the biggest loser. Yeah, like, he's like the worst Keyblade Master to ever exist, but he has to be the chosen one, so I guess we're stuck with him. Like, that seems to be the attitude, and I'm just like, he doesn't feel like a hero to me because of that.
Feels like a bumbling moron.
Yeah.
And then, like, he's already saved the world, like, the universe, like, a couple of times. Like, why are we still playing into this trope? Like, I was hoping for some growth there,
and I hate to generalize, but I feel like a lot of it comes back to it just being a Japanese-developed game. Like, there is a certain aesthetic and a certain vibe of writing and of characterization that is true of Japan and China, which look at anime. Like, it's an anime style where it's a lot of overacting, a lot of people vocalizing reactions, where instead of, like, looking confused, they go, huh? Like the way that nobody does in real life.
Right.
It's a lot of that, which just feels really cheesy and stupid.
And every time anybody is addressing Sora, Donald, and Goofy, they have to say all 3 of their names.
Right.
Slowly. Sora, Donald, Goofy.
And then it has to go on each one of those characters.
And they all have to have a little moment of, like, a little noise of recognition. Like,
exactly. They have to, like, nod and go,
Like, yep.
Yeah.
That's why it fucking takes forever. I have eyes to see.
Yeah. I mean, and it probably feels this way because it is this way, but this feels like a game that was made 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was. This game was written 10 years ago. A lot of the voiceover was done 10 years ago. So, it makes sense. And it really bums me out, is the biggest part.
Right. Me too.
I had as low expectations as I could possibly have, given that this is the final entry of one of my favorite games of all time. So obviously hard to like not be excited and not look forward to this. But given all the Kingdom Hearts that I've missed, how crazy off the rails the story has gotten, the fact that this has taken so long to develop, and even the trailers that we've seen of the gameplay not really like connecting with me in a huge way, I knew all of that coming into this game, and I'm still profoundly disappointed in what I have played so far.
Yeah.
And that says a lot of how little I like this game.
Yeah, I have to believe that it gets better as it goes.
Well, yeah. Because nothing's going to stop me from finishing it. I can't not play the entire game. And so, yes, I have to believe that it's going to get better because I don't want to sign on for not having fun for 50 more hours.
Yeah. I will say I'm not particularly partial to the movie Tangled, but all of the stuff that we're complaining about with the characterization and the flow of conversation, that is all better in the Tangled world.
Good.
I definitely feel like all of that is better, and I think it
maybe
has to do
they
with...
started in the beginning of the game 10 years ago,
yeah.
And like each world has been like a year sooner and sooner and sooner, which
better,
should mean at the end of it, like they just made that last year, and so that'll be the best part of the game.
Yeah,
that's the best thing we can hope for sure.
But it definitely feels a little tighter. Okay. A lot of that storytelling and the voice acting is in general very, very well done, and the animation's really great.
Yeah.
I think there are parts of that particular world that are very tedious because it's like, oh, here's another, grassy, mountainous forest area that I'm in. It's just a lot of that, which is unfortunate. But the boss battle for that area is really good. But cool. I don't know. There are plenty of good things to say about Kingdom Hearts 3. There are just way more disappointing things.
I'm not going to speak for you. I don't even think there are many great things you can say about Kingdom Hearts 3. Like, there are a couple things that I think are okay about it, but there's nothing I personally can point to, and I'm like, yes, I really like this part of the game. So, hopefully that changes.
Yeah.
But I'm not there yet.
Me neither.
What else? What else have you been playing?
So, hopefully another game that came out. The Resident Evil 2 remake. Well, technically, this came out before last episode. I just hadn't had a chance to play it. Or no, had I played it last episode?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Okay. I think I just started it. Well, I beat Leon's campaign. Campaign, not B. And I've been watching some other people play the other campaigns. Like, one of my friends was streaming the Claire A campaign. Now he's streaming the Leon B, so I've been watching that. I know Resident Knievel, Mary Kish, and Matt Mahardy from GameSpot. Well, Mary Kish, formerly of GameSpot, Matt Mahardy of GameSpot. They've been playing. Mary's been playing every single Resident Evil game. So she's played the original 2, original 3, Nemesis, and then she played 4, 5, 6, 7. She's played Code Veronica. She's played 0. She's played Revelations 1, not Revelations 2, and now she's going back and playing the RE2 remake. So I'm going to be watching that. And I know Abby from Giant Bomb is playing Claire B campaign, I think. Maybe Claire A on Giant Bomb. So watching plenty of people playing it. But I beat Leon's campaign. I feel good about it. I'm probably going to take a step back for a little while and just kind of watch other people play it while I play other things. I will someday.
Why is that?
Just because it's just more of the same type of thing. And I know in every campaign, Mr. X is going to be there. He's going to give it to you. And I'm just not up for that kind of tension immediately again.
Right.
I need some space.
I've seen a lot of really good Mr. X jokes and memes and GIFs and stuff.
Yeah.
People are latching onto him in a way they did not when that game first came out.
Yeah. Apparently, if you shoot his hat off, he no longer has his hat for the rest of the game.
It's pretty good.
But, I never shot his hat off because I never shot him. I just tried to avoid him. So he had his hat all the way up through the end. But, yeah, lots of weird things about that game. So playing that. done playing that for a short amount of time, and just still playing 7 Days to Die. So much. I'm almost level 100 now. And I just finished that really, really hard horde that comes on day 42. I think day 49 is the hardest one, and then the horde difficulty resets.
Okay.
So every, 49th day, because it's the 7th 7, it gets harder. Mm-hmm. So because every 7 days a horde comes, and then every multiple of 7, the horde gets harder and harder until you hit that 7th 7 at 49. That's the hardest, and then it resets back down to the 7th day difficulty. I have an amazing setup. I'm in the basement of a home. Everything is concrete. There's only one upgrade tier past that concrete. Well, it's second tier concrete, and then it becomes steel, forged steel blocks, which are very expensive to make. And I have iron bars, which you can shoot through, but takes the enemies a while to break through. So I have iron bars. I have a drawbridge first.
Wow.
So when I retract the drawbridge, they no longer have a path to me except to cross this small side bridge that I made specifically for this purpose, and it is a murder death trap. I have motorized spinning blades of death on that, and then instead of a railing like you would have on a bridge, they are giant metal spikes. So if they go to the sides to avoid the blade traps, or they are spun into them by the blade traps, they still take damage from those, and they don't fall off the edge. And then it eventually just leads them to the metal bars where I can just shoot the crap out of them. So I've got a pretty good setup.
Nice.
Not gonna lie. And
so do you think you're reaching the end of 7 Days to Die? Because you go in these cycles of different survival games.
Right. I don't know, because at level 100, I learned the ability to craft the highest tier stuff. Okay. So once I'm level 100, I'm sure I will craft all the highest tier armor and tools and weapons and stuff. And then I really haven't explored that much of the map. So ideally, I'll craft the highest tier stuff, and then all I have is a bike right now. So maybe I'll make a car, a sweet zombie car with spikes and stuff. Maybe I'll make one of those and drive around and mess stuff up. I don't know. Figure it out.
That's cool.
Yeah, 7 Days to Die. It's really good bad.
Well, the only other thing I've been playing, just because I've been so focused on Kingdom Hearts, I started and finished Gris, as I mentioned, the game everybody wanted us to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
So it's on Switch. It was fantastic. It really surprised, because I basically knew nothing about the game other than it had this really nice kind of painted visual style, and that people liked it. That's literally all I knew about the game. I think maybe I assumed it was going to be sort of a Journey type game where it was a little light on gameplay and more so about this emotional experience. But it's actually, it's kind of like a puzzle game, a little bit of platforming. It's not particularly hard. At the end, they introduce a lot of new mechanics where gravity changes, and you're kind of using all the different elements that they've given you up to a certain point. So in the beginning of the game, you just walk and you jump, and that's it. And then you're able to do this longer jump, and then you're able to do a sort of fast fly thing where there's these little red birds where you can double jump into them and it kind of shoots you up high. And then there's an underwater level where you learn this zoom underwater sort of thing that you can use, because in the late game there are streams of water, waterfalls, that you can kind of zoom up. So at the end of the game, as you would expect, it kind of puts all these individual pieces together for you to solve puzzles. But the biggest thing for me was, one, the visual style. It's this awesome, if anybody's seen Banner Saga, it kind of looks like that a little bit, where it's very old school animation, but also watercolor paints. And the whole story, well, not story, but the point of the game is you are this woman who has lost her voice. She used to sing, and she has lost her voice, and you're trying to help her get her voice back. And as part of the manifestation of that, all of the color has been drained from the world. Not black and white, but it's this taupe color, brown in the beginning. And so each section, you unlock a new color, and that color adds elements to the world. And so when you unlock the blue color, that's when it brings back all the water.
Okay.
When you unlock the green color, the next section is in this forest. And each section has different gameplay elements. Like the forest introduces these trees that disappear and appear. And so you have to time your jumps in the right time. It's all that kind of stuff. And it continues the same elements that it had before. And so you kind of go back to some early areas of the game later on, and they look completely different because now it has trees, now it has the waterfalls and all that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool progression throughout the game. It has a really awesome camera. So it's 2D side to side, but there's this sense of scale that the camera creates where it will like zoom in and out, like really, really far out at times where you're just like this little speck jumping and stuff.
Okay.
And that makes it feel a lot more alive and like, just the scale of the world feels much greater than it would if it's just kind of a static camera. The puzzles are not, like I said, they're not super challenging except for like in the very end of the game, but they're all fun. Like they all feel different in a way where you're using a different set of move. Like in the early one, you have this like dress cape that you wear, and she can turn it into like a square where it becomes like stony, and so she can't be moved. And so there's the big wind, like it's the thing in Journey where you have the wind where you're going from gravestone to gravestone, like hiding behind the wind. It's sort of like that at first, but then you get this move, and then you can just rock as the wind is happening, and then you can still progress. So It's like, it makes you feel more and more powerful as you go. And I think the thing that I enjoyed the most about the story is that it's pretty up to interpretation. Like, she gets, her voice back, and there's this beautiful song that she's singing at the end, as it's kind of like shows all of the world and all of the colors coming back together, and she kind of like ascends into the stars, and that's the end of the game. Because you're also trying to put this like statue back together, this huge stone statue. And so she kind of like, the stone statue lifts you up, and then you're jumping on these stars to go up into the heavens or whatever. And there's just a lot of ways to interpret that of like, hey, is she dying and it's this acceptance, or she's finally found her courage and now she's ready to like go back to the real world because she was in this kind of like dark, dank area. So there's just like, you can attach your own personal feelings and experiences onto the story, which is a really powerful thing. Yeah, it was just like, it was a very surprising sort of like deep emotional experience I had playing the game. And like, it was one where this type of game, you might think, oh, I'm going to play it for a half hour, or oh, I'm going to play this level and be done. But like, I wanted to keep playing the whole time. And I played it, I mean, it probably took me 5 hours-ish to beat. And I played it in 2 sit-downs. Okay. And that was it. Like, I was that engaged. And the only reason I stopped the first time is because it was like 11:30 at night, and I had to get off. But yeah, man, it was just a really surprising game for me because going in, I didn't know that much about it. And it's a great game on Switch. It looks so amazing and plays really well in handheld mode. So really highly recommend that one.
Okay.
So what else you got? What you been watching?
So Kara and I are really big into those shows where it's about like crazy architecture and homes and stuff. So we've been watching World's Most Extraordinary Homes. We watched that a while ago, but they just added a couple new series. So we've been watching that. It's hosted by a couple of British people. One of them is a famous British actress. I don't remember what her name is. And the other guy's an architect.
And it's on Netflix, right?
Yes. Yeah.
What's an example? What's been one of the more crazy homes?
So, I guess there was one in Spain, which was the episode we just watched. Was kind of several different homes in Spain where they had. It was kind of like in the middle of these this Spanish suburb, and it was just kind of like plopped in the middle of it. It's this huge it's a structure that looks like it was made out of giant poured concrete bridge I-beams and like stuff like that. Like there's kind of also like a little kind of an element of what is that called, where it's a channel to move water in and out of cities. There's like a famous one going into Rome where it's like a several tiered one of different arches.
Yeah, and it can go up and down, the water can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I can't think of it. But like there's like an element of that to it as well. It's just really, really fascinating looking home where there's a pool on the bottom floor, and it's kind of this courtyard area that's ringed in by these like huge monolithic pieces of concrete. And then like all the walls of the house are glass, so you can like see in. And then the second floor, the bedroom, directly off the bedroom out the window, there's this giant I-beam that comes out, and it's like a water channel. So it's like its own little private long pool that like goes all the way out. And at the end, there's a glass cap, and you can like see this like crazy view up above, like all these mountains and everything. It's gorgeous.
Cool.
It's just like a really weird home. It's like they took like architecture from like something very function over form and just made it look very form over function almost. Like they took things that are made for construction purposes and made them artistic. It's just like a really impressive. It was impressive the way they did it. There's just every home that they showcase, there's something really crazy about it. Like there was another one where there was a fireplace which was just flat stone on the ground and just like the logs set like ground level, and then it was just this giant freestanding piece of cast polished concrete, and that was the flue to let the fire go up. So it's like there's just like this giant block of stone in the middle of this room, like from waist height onto the ceiling, but below waist height there's just nothing there. It's just flat floor. So it's like this suspended giant concrete thing, which is the flue for the fireplace. Really interesting stuff. That house was all about like hiding the like modern amenities, like the kitchen and all the other rooms. Every wall in the place was made out of untreated steel, so it would like weather and rust with age, so it kind of has that like dappled orange brown look. And you would just like push on these panels that were like kind of hidden in the hallway, and like there would be rooms behind them and stuff like that. So it just looks like this empty hallway, and then you just press a panel on the side and it opens into a room. And in one of the bedrooms, it's just like a stair and then just flat floor. There's nothing else, nothing on the walls, and just a floor to ceiling window at the end where you can see out onto this field. And then if you turn around, you can pull the step out, and the bed is in the step. And that's the only furniture in the whole room. It's just like a lot of like really weird stuff.
Have you seen any Frank Lloyd Wright houses?
No, they didn't do any of the Frank Lloyd Wright houses. I guess just because they're all so well documented.
Maybe too obvious.
Yeah.
Because we've been to a couple of those.
Yeah.
I know there was one in Arizona that we went to that was like this huge complex with a bunch of cacti, and then there was the Falling Water one.
Yeah, Falling Water.
I don't remember where that is, but that one, it had like a river running through the middle of the
waterfall. Yeah.
And I think there's another one in New York, maybe, like in a museum that I went to. I don't remember, but there are a lot of really cool Frank Lloyd Wright houses.
Yeah,
but like you said, it's probably too well known to make sense for this kind
right.
of show.
And they do a lot of stuff like from around the world. I think Frank Lloyd Wright was mostly in America.
I think it's all in America.
Yeah,
I think so.
They did like a couple things like down in Miami. There were some interesting homes. But yeah, just really, really strange stuff. There was one that was like for this dude's car collection, and like it's on this giant hill. You go in ground level in like this hangar where he has all of his cars, and you take an elevator up. It's the only way to get to the house up top. And it has all these really neat spaces. So just really, really fascinating stuff. So that's World's Most Extraordinary Homes. It makes me sad about my house. And then the wife and I started Punisher season 2. So we've only watched the first few episodes, but we did start that.
Yeah, I need to and it's just because I've been so like busy and exhausted, I haven't wanted to like start a new thing I'm going to pay attention to, which we'll get to once I talk about my shows, because there's not a lot of new stuff on there. But I keep seeing The Punisher when I go to Netflix, and I'm like, oh, I need to watch that, and I want to, but like not right now. So maybe this weekend I'll start it.
It started pretty strong.
How many episodes are in the season, do you know?
I don't know. I think we've seen the first 3, possibly just the first 2. I can't remember. There's a lot of shit that happens pretty quickly. I will say, like, because Jigsaw's in it. Like,
yeah, I was just gonna say, like, that's
released.
a little annoying that they spoiled that like immediately with the promotion of it.
I will say I don't give two flying fucks about what they're doing with that character right now. It's has been supremely stupid so far.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, but
but they haven't canceled it yet, have they?
I don't know that. Yeah, I guess they haven't said that yet.
It'll be coming.
Yeah, it's around the corner. So what about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, not really anything new. Still watching some Kitchen Nightmares. I've been watching some of the revisited episodes where, like, he'll go back to a lot of the ones he's fixed a year or so later to check in.
Okay.
And it's really funny because almost all of them that he goes back and visits are doing better. But there's like a website that my wife loves that it's like a Where Are They Now Kitchen Nightmares sort of thing, where it's like what's currently going on with the restaurant. The vast majority of them closed. Like, and a lot of them closed a couple months after the revisited. So, like, I don't know if they're lying about doing better or they were only doing better because of the publicity from the show. And then once that's gone, it tanks.
Right.
But it's just like, again, the show is about entertainment, not about actually improving people's lives. Maybe Gordon Ramsay thinks he's improving people's lives. I don't know. He probably doesn't really care. But it's just funny to look at it and say, yeah, these are... No, almost none of them succeed, even after he goes in and buys them all new decor and a brand new chef and new instruments and all that kind of stuff, and they still fail. There's one crazy story that my wife found, which this is actually kind of dark, but there's one episode where they go into a revisited like 9 months after, and of course he's doing much better. They gave him like a special award from the city. I think it's in New Jersey or New York or somewhere, just to like say, hey, congrats on the success. And then like a couple of months after that, he got busted for taking cocaine at work.
Oh, jeez.
And then shortly after that, he sold the restaurant, which it was still doing well at that time. He sold the restaurant, and then just a few days after he sold the restaurant, he committed suicide. So, like, he got busted for doing cocaine, sold his restaurant, and then killed himself, leaving behind his wife and, like, 2 or 3 little kids. And then after that, after he killed himself, a chick who worked there, who was a waitress and then got promoted to pastry chef, made this Facebook post about, like, hey... we had something special. I'll always love you, baby. I'll see you someday again. Where everybody's like, he was cheating on his, like, he was having an affair with this chick. So it's just like, that's where it's like, oh, this is real life. These are actual people where he was doing drugs and cheating on his wife, and then he sold his restaurant and killed himself. Kitchen Nightmares.
That is a nightmare.
I don't think they're going to be doing revisited on that particular place.
Probably not.
So, yeah. And then still watching Scrubs. I finished the season finale, and it's quite good. I think, this was just like 2 days ago. I think I've decided I'm not going to watch season 9 right now because I know I don't like it, and I was only doing it because I wanted to watch the whole thing because that's my whole whatever. That's who I am. But the finale of that show is so fantastic that in season 9 just like undoes everything because all the characters come back and like that was the goodbye. That was the goodbye to JD and Elliot and Turk and everybody. And then they bring them all back again, and it's like really undermines the whole emotional highs of that. So we've been watching The Office a lot because we didn't have cable or internet, and so we were watching DVDs, and we've been watching a lot of The Office while we were packing and stuff like that. So I might watch through The Office. We're in like season 5 right now. But the biggest thing we started watching, because we had it on DVD, was Arrested Development. It's been a really long time since I watched through Arrested Development.
Yeah.
That show's fucking funny, man. And it is so weird and wacky and brilliant. It's amazing. And I'm like now thinking about all like how crazy it gets even going forward because like they just introduced An Young. We're still in season 1, so that's just like a funny little thing with the Korean kid who everyone thinks his name is An Young, but An Young is actually hello in Korean. So every time they say hey An Young, he goes An Young because he's saying hello back. It's quite funny and just a lot of like subtle humor to the show, like really off the wall humor. But then it gets even wackier with like. Jeffrey Tambor, the dad, his character like introducing his twin brother who like they do a swap where he's having an affair with the wife. That show is bonkers and it's quite amazing. Yeah, that's kind of all I've been watching, though. Nothing really new. So anything else before we dive into news?
I finished reading the Night Angel trilogy.
Nice.
I've done it. And I found out there was a little one-off novella that was like a prequel, as one of like the major characters that you never get his. It's never written from his perspective in the trilogy, but he's like a mentor for the main character. There's a prequel novella starring him, so I bought that and I finished that in like 2 days at work because it was only like 100 pages. And now I don't know what to do.
You don't have any other books on your shelf?
I have so many, but I don't know which one I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a trilogy by Mark Lawrence that I could start.
All right.
I also have a one-off book by Brandon Sanderson that's more of like a contemporary story about a person with like multiple personalities. I don't know. But I could just wait a couple days because apparently I found out there's a graphic novel of the first book of the Night Angel trilogy. So I bought it, and it's on its way right now. So maybe I'll just read that.
Sounds like what you should do. Yeah. So, and this was a relatively old trilogy, right? You said it was like 10 years old?
Yeah, the version I got was the 10th anniversary edition.
So there no sense that like it's going to continue?
It is. He has said that he worked on that little novella because there was like he wanted to experiment with the short story format, and then it actually turned into a novella because it was longer than a short story. But he said he's not doing any more of those because he wants to work on the next big novel, which presumably will be in that same universe.
Cool. And what's the author?
Brent Weeks.
Night Angel trilogy, just in case. You talked about it several times, so in case people want to check it out.
Yeah, man. It like he goes out of his way
to read all my books.
Yeah, he goes out of his way to set up a lot of the world. In maybe I don't want to say it's clumsy, but he does do a lot of expository. There's a lot of exposition. Let's just say that. And it's like a lot of just like mentioning the names of things and then nothing else about them. So he has all of these things where clearly he knows what they are, but I'm interested to find out more about that kind of background stuff. Like, oh yeah, then that name had been mentioned a couple times in the other trilogy, so maybe it takes place during this time and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, we'll see.
Cool. So what do you say we jump into some news? You actually did me a huge favor this morning because I was setting up the computer and you pulled the news.
So if I missed anything, it's my fault.
Well, I was going to say more that you're trying to outdo me when it comes to like the structure and the flow of everything. But I'm going to give you the lead on the news this episode, and then I'll be like the color commentator. Woo! So I can just have the little sarcastic interjections that you normally would have.
Yeah, and then give me the faces I normally give you that doesn't play well on an audio format.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So we just have like dead air.
Yeah, for like a couple seconds. Yeah. I'm good at this. All right. So just a couple little things to kind of get out of the way. A couple of
That's how you always want to start the news section. Let's talk about the least important things first.
Well, not that they're the least important. They are just their own little category, early access releases.
All right.
So a couple of things have come out in early access since last episode. Things that are worth mentioning. Because I'm sure there's been a buttload of stuff released in early access in the past couple of weeks, but most of it's hot trash garbage. So here's
some might say every game that releases is in early access these days.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to.
Yeah. So recently, Subnautica had their full release. Their like 1.0. And that is a game that had been in development for like 3 years, something like that, in early access for like 3 years, development for longer. And it finally got a full release. And so people were kind of like, okay, so what's next, right? Well, they released in early access Subnautica Below Zero, which is, it's all about, if you can't tell by the name, it takes place on, I believe, the same planet I don't know about the timeline of things, though, but it's like two sisters. You are one sister, and your other sister's like up on a space station, and you're like a researcher on the ground. And it's in like their version of an Antarctic. Right. So it's like a lot of frozen tundras, and it seems like there's bigger focus on doing things above the water level, or they have just more things to do, because with the original Subnautica, they released an update that had islands, and that's what kind of had a lot of the story content, was like after you go to the ship, you go to the island, and then you discover like there's this whole big alien race sub-story going on. And this seems like to continue some of that stuff and have like more answers about that civilization that was there before. All new types of flora and fauna, because it's like, the Arctic and not more like tropical like it was in the first game. It seems like instead of areas that are like high radiation, you have like high levels of cold, or low levels of cold, I guess you could say. Probably also dealing with a lot of similar like depth things where like you have to get an upgraded suit in order to go deeper, just like the first game. But because of all the cold and the new types of flora and fauna, there are new gadgets and new materials and different things that you're going to be doing. I'm assuming it's a pretty similar loop to the original game. This one, what I've seen so far, seems to have more story than the original did, though. Like a lot of chatter between you and your sister. And like I said, that is out now in early access on Steam. So
it looks pretty dope. I watched the little gameplay trailer thing that's linked, the Game Informer article, which, as always, we'll have the show notes of this on SheaHatesEverything.com with all the links to all the news stories. But the video that I watched, like, it looked pretty awesome. And I know you really loved Subnautica when you were playing it on PC, and it came out in the whatever game preview program on Xbox, and it's out there. Still not out on PS4. When it does release, I'm like 100% going to play it. It looks really, really cool. Like, I'm not a huge survival game person. Minecraft has been like the only survival game-ish game that I've really connected to, but this just looks really, really cool. And the Below Zero, like all the new creatures and stuff, like they're like lookalikes to a lot of real life creatures. So there's like a penguin looking thing, there's a big whale, like some kind of underwater serpent thing, like just a lot of really cool looking stuff.
I really think the design in Subnautica is really strong. The biggest thing about the first Subnautica was when you get really low and it's or really deep rather, and like the light stops being able to filter that far, and it's like really dark and creepy, and there's like a lot of freaky sounds and stuff. That game becomes like a horror game at a certain point.
That maybe isn't my vibe.
Right. That game really freaked me out in a lot of those lower depths. So I'm assuming this game will have similar things. An added thing that kind of builds tension is it's until you get closer to the surface in this, it's not always clear whether or not there's a layer of ice over your head, because the whole thing is like you have an oxygen level that you have to surface to regenerate, or there are certain animals that you can kind of replenish your oxygen from underneath the water. But like in the first Subnautica, it was just like make it to the surface, and now it's like make it to the surface, but make sure there's a surface there and it's not ice. So there's kind of like an added element of tension and like being aware of your surroundings that I think is kind of interesting. So yeah, Below Zero, it's out. Another early access game seems to be a sort of spiritual successor to Shadow of the Colossus. It is called Prey for the Gods, Praey. Because originally their name was Prey, Prey, for the Gods, and Arcane got a little upset because, like, hey, we just made a game called Prey. You can't have Prey in your name, which is stupid, but it's litigation, whatever. Yeah. It's a copyright stupid thing.
Protecting their intellectual property.
I get it.
I mean, I don't think this isn't the first time Bethesda has done this.
No,
didn't they go after Mojang for the Scrolls trademark?
For sure.
So,
yeah, Bethesda has a
historically litigious publisher.
Yes, for sure. So they had to change the spelling. Apparently, they have not changed the spelling on the title screen of the game, only the Steam page. So the image at the title screen is still Prey.
Nice.
Which I don't know if they're even going to change it, because the whole thing about the name is that it's a play on the words. Like, you pray, hands together, dear God, for the gods, but prey, Prey. You are hunted by the gods. You are prey for the gods.
Thanks for explaining that.
Yep. Just making sure people know. So by adding an A, it kind of takes away from some of the double meaning.
And makes it a weird word.
Right. It is really unabashedly a ripoff of Shadow of the Colossus. Like, the way your stamina meter looks, it's a ring around your health circle, and, like, your stamina slowly drains in that ring, and you're clinging to these giant Titan-like creatures and trying to climb up to them to find the spot where you can hurt them. It's very, very similar. It has, like, there are weapons. I know in Shadow of the Colossus, like, you had your sword to fight the Colossi with, and the bow.
And your bow.
So this has a bow and a sword, but there's also, like, a grappling hook and some other stuff.
And some kind of gun, like, she shoots. And to me, yes, they're definitely the main mechanic of the boss fights. Feels very similar to Shadow of the Colossus, but it looks like there's more going on in the gaps between.
Yes.
Because that was part of the thing about Shadow is, like, all you are doing is and then that's part of the charm and the intrigue of the game was just taking really long rides on your horse in between. Like, that was part of the world building. But this, it didn't really show a ton of, like, combat, but, like, when she's walking, these creatures, like, come out of the ground, and it looked like she was getting ready to fight them. And so my assumption is that there's more to do in between the big monster fights.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I that seems like how they're differentiating it from just being a ripoff of Shadow of the Colossus.
Right. And apparently it's just a game with 3 developers, so 3 people made it.
Oh, wow.
Which
it looks great.
Yeah.
I like the look of it.
Yeah.
It's like Shadow of the Colossus with winter.
Right, it's all very snowy mountains, and then the snow tech is actually really impressive. Like, as the character walks through the snow drifts, the trail it leaves behind.
Yeah, some of that snow tech.
Yeah, I love good snow tech. So yeah, that's also out now in early access on Steam. Change of a title screen to be determined. So just a couple little things that I felt worth mentioning because they look very interesting, and they are in line with your and my interests when it comes to games. So next up, we kind of have a series of, studio closures, people changing studios, a lot of shifting and moving in the industry. I mean, it's an ever-changing landscape, but I feel like there are more big stories in the last couple of weeks than there have been in a while.
Not all of them are bad, though. There's also some, like, new studios and stuff in here. So,
but it's just like a vastly and quickly changing landscape. So last episode, we talked about how Machinima was being purchased by Otter Media and potentially being kind of folded into the Otter Media's full screen.
And how they had deleted all of their videos from their YouTube channel.
Every single Machinima video was deleted from the YouTube channel. So they weren't, in fact, purchased by Otter Media, and 81 of their employees at Machinima were laid off as part of the transition. Which I think is a big chunk of their employee base.
I thought it was basically everybody.
Yeah,
like their CEO or whatever of Machinima is still with the company because she's helping with the transition. But the press release they put out says she's actively looking for otherwise employment. Right. So my understanding was like everybody's gone from Machinima. It no longer exists,
which is crazy. Like they bought the company and then just like booted everyone else out the door. That's pretty nuts. But you know that happens with. Not just in the game. It doesn't happen in the games industry very often. But, I mean, I guess this is games industry adjacent. This is more entertainment industry. I don't know how often that sort of thing happens there. But I know in the business industry, that happens quite often where mergers will happen and large percentages of staff will be laid off.
Right.
So, sorry to those 81 people. Hopefully they are able to find work somewhere. I know when
unless one of them's like an asshole,
then like, hey, maybe like find another job and like be a better person, like find something that's good for you and then have like a moment of growth.
Right. I'm not just gonna like arbitrarily say like, oh, best wishes to everybody affected, because like
that's fair.
Maybe one of those people is like a racist that beats his wife. Like, no, I don't have best wishes for that prick.
Man, you and I really have switched roles today. This is weird. So another unfortunate story of layoffs it is reported, this has not happened yet, and it has not been officially announced, but it is reported that there will be massive layoffs at Activision Blizzard, resulting in hundreds of jobs lost. So it looks like last time it was tallied, there were like 9,800 some people working at Activision Blizzard. And
it's a big company.
Yeah, huge company.
Well, at Activision.
At Activision. So to lose hundreds of those jobs, that's a large chunk of people. A lot of people put out on the streets. And the official statement is expected to come on Tuesday, so the day after this goes up. So kind of keep your ears open for that. This is likely due to several different factors. The split from Bungie being one of them, right? Like Activision and Bungie just split, so Bungie could take over sole development of Destiny and kind of take it in their own direction. Also, while Bungie was with Activision, Destiny Forsaken did not perform as well as they wanted it to, so revenue was down from that. And then revenue from games like Overwatch, the games as a service titles, it's been static. It's not growing. It's not necessarily falling, but it's, overall pretty static, which has worried some of their investors, and their stock has just weakened slightly.
Even with Call of Duty, and like Black Ops 4 has done well. I don't know how it sits in comparison to recent Call of Duty
diminishing
games, but
returns.
For like the last 5 years, Call of Duty still does very well, but it hasn't done as well as like Modern Warfare 2 and the original Black Ops did. Call of Duty has been down for several years at this point.
Right. So, unfortunately, a lot of people will be affected by this. And who knows what this means for games in development or games as a service that are currently ongoing. That just the way that all shakes out remains to be seen. But
interesting as well, because last episode we talked about the creative director at CD Projekt Red joining Blizzard. Was it Blizzard or was it just Activision? I don't remember. But
Blizzard.
The scuttlebutt was he was going to be leading the team working on Diablo 4, and so just interesting that you would think they'd be hiring new people and focusing on that project, and now specifically Blizzard potentially is laying off hundreds of people. That just is a weird shift for them to make.
Well, I think the timing of it lines up where it clearly they are reorganizing some things internally, quite a few things internally.
Yes.
So maybe the acquisition of him is in line with that. Kind of wheat from the chaff, so to speak.
It's a weird thing, and it's my experience, but like in the corporate world, I've been in a unique scenario where like I'm usually the only person doing my job. So I'm not a part of 10 people who are all content writers.
Right.
I'm the content writer. Or I guess one of my jobs there were 2 of us, but like they wouldn't lay off me because I'm the only person doing that job. So it's just weird to imagine a scenario where I'm one of 56 developers on this team where any of us could be let go at any time because you might only need 55 developers.
Right.
Like I'm the customer marketer at Terminus. That's my new job. I'm the only customer marketer. They hired me because they needed someone to do customer marketing. They're not just going to be like, oh, we changed our minds. We don't need to do this anymore at all.
Right.
Like that at least gives me some job security.
Right, for sure. So talked about kind of diminishing returns of Call of Duty. Former Sledgehammer founder, Michael Condrey. So about a year ago, 2 of Sledgehammer's founders, Glenn Schofield and Michael Condrey, announced they were leaving the Call of Duty development cycle to work at other parts of Activision, like in other capacities at Activision.
They were going to kind of oversee a larger stable of games than just their specific Call of Duty game. Like, they weren't even going to just be overseeing Call of Duty. They were going to be much broader. And these 2 guys, like, the reason they started Sledgehammer to work on the Call of Duty series, they originally were co-creators of Dead Space. So, like, they have a pretty good track record of making quality games.
Right. And I think they kind of got out of Visceral at the right time.
Clearly.
So they kind of dodged a bullet there. Then Schofield said, hey, I'm leaving Activision. But we hadn't really heard from Condrey, and now we have. So apparently, so Schofield's out. Not sure what he's going to be doing, but Condrey has announced that he's heading to Take-Two. So Take-Two is owned by 2K Games. And Take-Two has worked on like the Grand Theft Auto games, the BioShock games, Mafia games, Civ games, Borderlands. Like they worked on a ton of high-profile franchises, like franchise games. So he has joined Take-Two on an unannounced project with a new studio. So presumably he will be involved in the upper management or heading a new studio at Take-Two. You put a note in here in all caps that is BioShock.
I mean, look at the guy's experience, right? He is one of the original producers on Dead Space, a horror shooter. And then he went to work on the Call of Duty series, a first-person shooter. What is a first-person shooter series that has horror elements and a lot of like world building the way that Dead Space did?
Yep.
It's BioShock.
I want to say yes, because I mean, I would be totally awesome. That would be awesome. I'd be very okay with that. But B, like I want to say like they've already been working on that for a while, but maybe just conceptually.
True. I mean, and they've kind of talked around BioShock a lot. Like they keep referencing a certain series that people love that's been dormant for a while. Like they've made mention of that the last couple of years. So yes, certainly possible that they're already working on the next BioShock game. That doesn't mean that they couldn't use a new lead voice of that game, or that things weren't coming along the way they wanted it to, as we're about to hear a lot when we talk about the EA section.
Yeah.
Like where they needed a new creative voice to come in and redirect the series. So anything that, I mean, I shouldn't say anything. It's not like Michael Condrey's like the greatest game developer of all time, but he's worked on quality games, and I could, any new game, like I could be excited about any new game if it's done with quality. So even if it's not BioShock, I'm interested to see what this is going to be. If it's a new IP, that'd be even more exciting than a sequel. Yeah. But a new BioShock seems to fit, given this guy's experience.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways, Prey 2017 was kind of brazenly aping off of their formula.
Sure.
But also improving on it in a lot of aspects. And so it would be interesting to see what a new BioShock game would look like in a world where Prey 2017 was relatively successful and reviewed well. See if they take any lessons from them.
It gets complicated. I mean, there were a lot of elements about Prey I did not enjoy. I didn't think that the slow-paced shooting meshed well with the fast-paced enemies, just inherently.
Yeah.
So I didn't enjoy the combat. That's just me. The larger thing is, like, it not being a Ken Levine joint. I think, even from me, BioShock 2 got a lot of undue hate because it was a disappointing sequel to one of the best games ever made, my favorite game ever made. So obviously I was going to not be super excited about it. I think it's a much better game than a lot of people give it credit for.
I agree, yeah.
But it was clear that it lacked the singular vision that Ken Levine had for both BioShock and BioShock Infinite. A lot of people didn't like Infinite for several different reasons. I get it. But I thought it felt like the true sequel to the original BioShock.
Yeah.
So him not being involved, it's hard to imagine what this will be. I guess is how I would put it.
Right. Yeah. But if this is a sci-fi first-person shooter, and what was the name? Condrey has worked on a sci-fi horror game.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. How to make stuff creepy in space. He knows how to do
that.
Yeah. So, he working with a new studio at Take-Two. Another new studio, former Telltale Ubisoft developers have split off from Ubisoft and are starting a new studio. So when the whole Telltale debacle happened, when they went belly up, Ubisoft hired several of their developers. And apparently 3 of them are now departing Ubisoft and starting their own studio. They're going to be called Ad Hoc. And when they were interviewed about it, one of them was speaking about how the pitch process in a large company like Ubisoft is a bit of a mess.
Right.
Because it said, hey, when you have a great idea, getting 50 other people to be on board with that great idea, not always the easiest thing, and your vision doesn't always come out intact.
Gets watered down just inherently. Like it can't not get watered down, which to go back to my personal experience of television, that's why you see shows on Fox, ABC, NBC, CBS being generic-ass bullshit.
Yep.
Because there are a million people that want their voices to be heard in the creative process, so every show becomes the same.
Yep.
And while networks like HBO and Netflix let singular-minded creators make the shit that they're passionate about, and the quality's better. It's like a crazy concept. You couldn't possibly imagine it.
Yeah. So these few people clearly have an idea that they're passionate about, that someone at Ubisoft was not, or some people at Ubisoft were not, at least not in the same way that they were. They didn't share the vision. So they're starting their own studio called Ad Hoc, and they did mention that Bandersnatch was an inspiration because they want to focus on interactive narrative experiences, which Telltale was obviously that was their big gimmick. And then it would be interesting to see more things like Bandersnatch, which is even less of a game than even the Telltale games were. So that's just kind of blurring the line between the medias in an interesting way. So we'll see. You have to keep our eye on them. Lastly, in kind of this changing landscape, a game that I'm excited about. So Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. It's an anime game. Normally, anime games are hot garbage. But I really, really liked the show that I've seen. Apparently, I didn't realize this, but there's a popular mobile game for it in Japan, as well as the manga and the anime. They have recently announced a new fighting game in the series, but the big thing that I'm really excited about is the RPG it's supposed to be coming out on PS4. They were working, the developer of this game is CY Games, and they were working with Platinum Games, which is why my interest was initially piqued, because Platinum, developers of like Vanquish and Nier Automata, Bayonetta, like all of those like really solid, not quite, slightly above B tier third person character action games. Just like a lot of like really good frenetic combat in those games.
Like the Legend of Korra game. That thing was awesome.
Okay.
No, I know.
The three that I listed.
Good. Yes. There's clearly been an A platinum team and a B platinum team, and you can judge what it's going to be like depending on who is making it.
Yeah. So they were working with Platinum Games, but apparently CY Games chose not to renew their development contract with Platinum Games. So either things were not going the way they wanted them to, and they wanted to have a shift, but they said like they're just going to finish the game on their own, which I don't know what that's all about, but that's kind of all that they said. And Platinum released a similar statement that was just saying, they didn't renew the contract.
Right.
So like development on it will continue, but it'll be all theirs.
Yeah.
So just kind of a weird thing, like no buzz or rumors about what might have caused that separation, but
the bummer of it is, I mean, this is obviously a project that would be bigger in Japan than it would be in the US just because of the source material, but this was a big project for Platinum Games.
Yeah.
And I mean, they're still working on Bayonetta 3. They're working on that Babylon's Fall, is that what it's called?
Yep.
That is with Square Enix, I think. That was revealed at the Sony press conference or Nintendo press conference? I don't remember. But they have some other games in the pipe, but you never want to see a talented studio lose a project.
Yeah,
so
it just makes me wonder what happened. Maybe in the coming days or weeks, we'll hear a little bit more buzz about that. But, So that's kind of like the majority of the changing landscape in terms of people shifting and new studios, other things closing, yada yada. So, all right. Electronic Arts, EA, as many people know them, in layman's terms, EA. They
most commonly known as repeat winner of most hated company in America.
Correct. Yeah, I'm sure there's a trophy with that on it somewhere in their office.
It's basically a 2-horse race between EA and Comcast just about every year.
Right. GameStop close third.
Right.
So EA came out and had a statement about Battlefield 5 and said it did not meet their sales expectations. So Andrew Wilson,
despite selling 7 million copies.
Yes. So CEO Andrew Wilson, the nicest supervillain you will ever meet.
That dude is one of the best dressed video game executives.
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing what he's wearing every year at E3. This year, I think it was disappointing. It was just like a sweater and some jeans.
Yeah.
He usually has like a really nice jacket or some like cool shoes.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the cape. So
he'll grow a mustache for next year. A nice twirly one.
Yeah. He just those eyebrows, man. It makes me feel like he's up to something nefarious. Gonna tie me to a railroad track. So he announced that Battlefield 5 misses sales expectations. He cited like contributing factors like the month-long delay, because originally it was supposed to come out a month beforehand, and then it got pushed in November, which was the busy holiday season. And he also cited the prioritizing their single player instead of their battle royale mode, which is probably true. For me personally, the single player is why I bought the game, so they got my sale based on that. But you know, I guess that makes sense. I mean, if they had rolled out that Battle Royale mode with the game, it probably would have sold better. But as of yet, they still have not rolled out that Battle Royale mode, which is crazy.
What I would argue, rather than, we spent too much time on the single-player mode, which is a really bullshit excuse, because it's not like it had this super robust story campaign.
Right.
It had a bunch of little vignettes that, you know, like you mentioned, are improved versions of what was in Battlefield 1, but it's not like that was the main core of the game. And that's just this whole, like, single-player games are dead thing that a lot of these big studios take, which is constantly disproven by the success of games like God of War and Spider-Man and Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, fuck off with your multiplayer bullshit argument. The bigger thing for me is, like, this probably failed for two reasons. One, you're trying to put too much shit in this game, too many different modes, which, number two, is a cause of this, or an effect of this, rather, that the game launched without some of the biggest things that people wanted.
Right.
Like the Battle Royale mode. And there's another story here, Kyle, that we were going to talk through, like their combined arms, which is their sort of like Spec Ops co-op mode, is coming soon. But
I'll play that.
We're your $10 million prospective audience. Were they asking for small co-op missions? Like, I highly doubt it. Okay, one person. But my point is, if your argument is competitive multiplayer and battle royale, those are the core tenets to our game, it isn't that you quote-unquote spent too much time on single player, it's that you tried to do too many things. Look at Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Everyone was all up in arms when they cut the single player mode, which has always been better than the core Battlefield modes, because it has more bombast and more fun action than Battlefield has, because it's taken itself too seriously.
Right, and that's why I'm pretty sure that has to be why they were so adamant on having a single player, is because Call of Duty wasn't.
Yeah, they thought that was going to be a differentiator when they should know their audience better than that. That's not a differentiator. The single-player mode in Battlefield has been far more forgettable than the single-player mode in Call of Duty. And if Call of Duty can come out and be that successful with just multiplayer, zombies, and the Blackout Battle Royale mode, like, their strategy of Battlefield 5 was bad. And this is just purely CEO speak, where he's passing the buck and saying, like, we did too much of this other thing or whatever. Like, no, from the get-go, you were thinking incorrectly. And you are playing catch-up with your Battle Royale mode, which is why it's not ready. That was not a core tenet of the game. They added it after the success of PUBG and then Fortnite. Like, this game was doomed from the start, which is the whole reason it was delayed in the first place. Because they were trying to fit all these other unfinished pieces into the game, which they weren't even able to do. So these huge core tenets of their product are being released months after the game launches. Of course it's not going to have sold as well as you anticipated. If you're launching half of a game, you're going to get half as many people that are interested.
Right.
It's just it's a completely absurd argument, and trying to like, it's just because people don't care about single player modes. Like, no, it fucking isn't, dude. That makes me so angry.
Yeah. But yeah, the Combined Arms co-op is coming this week. So
I'm glad you're excited about it.
I am.
Do you have someone to play with?
No. I'll be playing with randoms, I guess. 4 maps, each have their own type of mission. Not much else is known about it, though.
Yeah.
So who knows? And then Battle Royale mode is due out in March. So.
And aren't they still going to be releasing more single-player content?
So they did that 5th one. That released like a little bit ago.
Already released.
Yeah, that was where you play as, I think, the Germans, and it's like a tank.
And that just goes back to my point. Like, it's either a complete misunderstanding of what your audience wants, or it's a doubling down on we can do everything, or a combination of both.
Yeah.
And either one of those is a really bad way to make a game. And if it's both, that only makes it that much worse.
Right.
Battlefield 5 was doomed from the get-go because they tried to do way too much stuff.
Yeah. Like, it should have launched with their multiplayer and their Battle Royale, and then, I mean, as much as this would have hurt me, and then use those funds to create the single-player campaign and this combined arms as a way of getting new people to purchase it. Like, new people
or
to
cut
get in.
one of those things. Or don't do a single-player mode. Or don't do a combined arms mode. Like, something needs to give somewhere. Otherwise, you're putting out all the stuff that is in the game isn't as good as it could be. And the game that you're launching is missing huge portions of itself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the worst of both worlds. Because they spread themselves too thin.
Yeah. Oh, well, you know, EA. Speaking of EA, Disney has said that it has a, in quotes, good relationship with EA, and that they still prefer to license their games rather than publish them. Which, that part I get. Like, you do not have the kind of financial risk if you were licensing a game instead of developing a game or publishing it. But I cannot believe they have a good relationship with EA.
This is a classic case of a boyfriend and girlfriend. The boyfriend is unhappy, and like a friend of hers asks him, like, "Hey, how's your relationship going?" And she is like around the corner behind her locker looking at him, and he knows it. So he's like, yeah, we have a good relationship. That's what this is. Disney is like, in a sense, under hostage by this. And the core part of it is like, EA has a 10-year exclusivity deal with Disney. Disney is probably the biggest company on the fucking planet. So if they wanted to find a way to buy themselves out or get out of this, I'm sure they could. But it doesn't really serve them to do that at this point. So they're halfway through this 10-year exclusivity deal. It doesn't really serve them to say like, oh yeah, EA hasn't been doing its job, company that still has 5 years of access to our properties. Like, of course they need to stand behind EA and look like a partnership. And then after this exclusivity deal is over,
peace out.
Guarantee you they will not be renewing it or extending it.
Unless things have dramatically changed.
Right, which at this point I have very little faith that it will, because
Same.
EA keeps fucking up Star Wars. Like, so they've had this exclusivity deal for 5 years at this point. The first thing that they released with this was the Old Republic MMO, which was in the works before the deal even happened. So you can't really attribute that part of it to this exclusivity deal. Which, when it launched, it wasn't awesome, but people, it had its audience. But it's really grown and improved over time, and it's become a really popular, successful MMO. So I'll give them that. You want to know the other 3 Star Wars games they've put out in 5 years of this? Battlefront 1, hot piece of shit garbage. Battlefront 2, even hotter piece of shit garbage somehow. Didn't think it was possible, and they certainly found a way. 10x shittier. And whatever it's called, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which is their mobile game. Which I'm sure makes a shit ton of money, because people that play mobile games are idiots.
Yeah, they make tons of money.
So, that's all they've put out with this deal. So the whole original Project Ragtag that Visceral and Amy Hennig were working on, that got canceled, and then they shut down Visceral. That game was handed over fully to EA Motive, who was helping originally with the game, the studio that was led by Jade Raymond. They started redeveloping it into an open world game, and then they teamed up with EA Vancouver, who eventually they merged with to become one studio. Jade Raymond then left that studio last year, and then now they've canceled that version of the game. So they've canceled this game twice.
Yeah, and even before it was Project Ragtag at Visceral, it was Star Wars 1313.
The 1313, yes,
which
you're
was
right.
Canceled.
Even before, yes. So they've canceled this game 3 times.
Yeah.
Oy vey. So at this point, as part of this earnings call, because that's why we have all these news pieces, is all these companies have had their quarterly earnings calls. So as part of the earnings call, they said, hey, Jedi Fallen Order, the Respawn game, is still in the works. It's still on track to come out in 2019. I'm kind of at a point where I'm like sneezing. But I'm kind of at a point where I don't really buy that anymore. Like, until I'm holding the game in my hands, I'm not going to believe it. Combined with the fact that when that game was announced, like, clearly Vince Zampella, who's the head of Respawn, like was like under duress when he announced that game, and they haven't really shown anything else, and yet it's still somehow coming out this year. Plus, they have a new game, Apex Legends, that Respawn just put out. So at this point, I'm like, until I'm playing Jedi Fallen Order, I don't believe that it actually exists. Same. So, Apex Legends, it's a battle royale game set in the Titanfall universe. So it's the Titanfall 3 you all wanted, right?
So they've actually said that there is another Titanfall game in development that is... They didn't say Titanfall 3, but they did say it was something new for the franchise. But I don't know what that means. It could be like a different genre. I'm almost wondering if it's going to be like an RTS with Titans and units and stuff. Because that seems like a formula that would lend itself well to that type of a game. But yeah, so anyways, Apex Legends, Battle Royale game. It's out now. They announced it and released it on the same day, and people really, really like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a Battle Royale game. And because of that, I've been just ignoring it.
Right,
like, obviously, I don't like want it to be bad, but I'm just not interested. And people are talking about it, and it's like hero based, blah blah blah. And the reception has been good. I just could not care less. I just, it's free to play. That's cool. Makes it easy for people to try, but I know I'm not gonna like it because I don't like competitive online multiplayer games. And I don't like battle royale games. So like, this isn't for me.
Right.
So selfishly, I'm disappointed because Respawn, they've had 2 teams which they announced like a year or so ago, and this is probably why. It just takes away resources from a legit Titanfall 3 and the Star Wars game.
The Titanfall 2 campaign was really good.
So, yeah, it was awesome. So I selfishly am like bummed, I guess is maybe an exaggeration, but like this does nothing for me, but it is succeeding really well already.
Yeah,
people love fucking battle royale shit, man.
They do.
It's the new hotness.
Oh, ooh, beat me to it. But yeah, so if you want to look up what is the deal with Apex Legends, I don't know enough about battle royale games to really tell you why it's really different, other than it's like an Overwatch, Rainbow Six Siege, like special characters.
Yeah, it has heroes, hero characters.
Yeah, and like some stuff about the monetization. So you are unlocking crates. They're cosmetic only, gun skins and like armor skins. The more boxes you open without a legendary or a rare, the higher your chances of getting one in the next box, which is good. And there are no duplicates. Mm-hmm. So there you go. I've heard there are other improvements in the minute-to-minute gameplay, like quality of life improvements. I don't know what those would be. So
we can't speak to that, and we will probably never mention Apex Legends again unless there's some crazy thing that happens. The biggest thing to say is like, if you like Battle Royale or you're interested, it's free to play. Just like go try it. Yeah.
So that was Electronic Arts. Now,
although we should probably mention Fortnite just so that I can like put it in the show notes for like SEO. So I can put like Fortnite in the title of the episode to get a million downloads. Fortnite.
Hey, I launched the Epic Games launcher yesterday to pre-order Metro Exodus because it's not on fucking Steam anymore. But it was $10 cheaper. So I pre-ordered Metro Exodus, and I looked in my library, and the only other game in there was Ashen, and uninstalled was Fortnite. And it was like, hey, come on, you want to reinstall me? You should. And I was like, fuck off. I play good games. Anyways. Sony. I like Sony.
You looked at me like you were totally lost. Like you're like in a performance on stage and you just forgot your line.
Sony.
Panic wide-eye.
I like them.
Like, literally, the story is on the screen right here. You just need to read the bullet points.
Sony stock sees significant decline due to slowing video games business.
Great job.
Thank you. I got it out.
Yeah, so just like everyone else, they had their quarterly earnings call. And they kind of talked through that they've had a significant stock drop, 8.1%.
Which is a lot.
Which has been the highest since 2015. It is quite a lot. And the biggest reason, there's, I'm sure, lots of reasons, but the biggest one they point to was around their games division, which makes sense. The games division of Sony has been the most profitable for quite a while. Their, electronics division is shitty because... One, Sony was always a premium option. They were the Porsche of televisions and stereos, etc.
Yeah.
And all of the other competitors that could do it for cheaper have been catching up, and the economy has been bad, and so people have been splurging less on expensive Sony products and instead buying cheaper ones. So that has been doing worse for several years at this point. Their movies division also has not been doing awesome. They don't pick a lot of good projects, and they've had a lot of flops. And even recently, Venom made a shit ton of money, but even recently, if you look at Spider-Man, they were failing with Spider-Man, which was one of their biggest properties, which is why they partnered with Marvel, because they were like, oh, please, God, just make us some money. Yeah. We don't know how. Make us some money instead. So their video games have been the most successful part of their business, which is one of the biggest reasons Kaz Hirai, who used to be head of PlayStation, became... I don't know if he was a CEO, but someone who was running the company of Sony corporate and is now on the board. He's one of the biggest dudes at Sony, and it's because of how successful he was with the video games business. So, all that to say, the biggest concern is, hey, there was no PSX. Hey, they're not doing E3. Hey, all of their big games that they've announced before don't have release dates and are therefore not likely to come out in 2019. Hey, you haven't announced the PS5 yet and when it's going to come out. So just that kind of uncertain future is making stockholders afraid of Sony's future.
Yeah, how
That's
could
really
they
all
not?
It points back to. Yeah,
how could
absolutely.
they not be afraid?
Totally makes sense. And, obviously the PS4 has sold exceptionally well. It is dominating the market in this generation. And I don't know if, sales have, slowed down, but it's just that, forecasting. Right. They want to sell 18 to 20 million units this year to match this past year or quarter or however they measure it. But without games coming out, you can't assume it's going to continue to sell the way that it did, when Spider-Man was on there, when God of War came out, even games that weren't co-marketed but were big releases like Red Dead 2. There are no big games like that in this first quarter. You have Anthem, but that's been middling. I would not be at all surprised to see that game disappoint for sales.
Right,
so
and it's multi-platform.
There isn't a ton. Yes. Yeah, but I just mean a big game release will still sell consoles even if it's not exclusive to that console.
Right.
And there isn't a ton of that coming out overall this year. A lot of these big hitting announced releases don't have 2019 release dates on them. Some of them may come out this year, but most of them probably will not. Death Stranding, that Ghost of Tsushima, maybe even The Last of Us 2. It very, very unlikely those games will release this year.
Yeah.
Hopefully The Last of Us 2 does, don't get me wrong, but
oh my God.
At this point, not holding my breath.
Right. Looking towards the future, though, the only real bit of information that we have in terms of what Sony could potentially be planning is that they've recently filed a new patent for a PS5 that points towards backwards compatibility. And it also might not necessarily be the PlayStation 5, but people are assuming it. It suggests that the PS5 would be capable of running software from quote-unquote legacy devices, so ideally 3, 4, possibly even 1 and 2. The big problem with PlayStation 3 is that the infrastructure of the console was so ridiculously difficult to work with and emulate, and that's why they had to... Their version of backwards compatibility was PlayStation Now, where it was all server-side.
And it was still paid. It's not like you could put in your PS3 discs. And they had, they brought forth several PS3 games to the digital store, but again, you had to buy those. So it's not at all like Microsoft's really, really good backwards compatibility. Yeah. And how they're up-resing games, adding achievements. Microsoft has been killing it with that kind of stuff, and Sony is not, because after acquiring Gaikai, that game streaming service, they've just been so focused on trying to build PlayStation Now, and it has not built. It's been a failure. So hopefully this is them admitting defeat and understanding that in order to compete with Microsoft in that capacity, they need to have backwards compatibility. It might be too difficult, though, with PS3. It might just be not capable. Anything is possible with the right amount of money.
Might not be fiscally responsible.
Yes. Might not be possible from an investment standpoint.
Right.
Hopefully it is.
So yeah, again, no word on how far back they intend to go, like with their legacy devices or what form that might take. It's just a patent filing, which could really be anything. They're just getting ahead of it. And then lastly for Sony, just a little PSA that the PlayStation Plus cloud storage has increased from 10 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes. So this is likely a response to them pulling support for PlayStation 3 and Vita on PlayStation Plus. They're no longer giving out free games for those systems every month.
Yeah, and they announced that like a year or so ago, and it goes live in March, I think, is when I got an email. I think that's when it goes into effect. So yeah, this is a, they're still charging the same amount, and they're going to be offering fewer games. So they needed to do something to like make people not go, why am I still having to pay you $60 a month or $60 a year if I'm getting fewer things?
Right.
So this, like, how many people have more than 10 gigs of save data seems nuts. But
yeah. I guess you never know.
100 gigs should be plenty.
Yes, more than most people should need. But there you go. That's a little carrot, I guess, with the stick. Microsoft has announced that they are rebranding Microsoft Studios as Xbox Game Studios. So this is pretty much in line with their recent acquisitions of a bunch of different third-party development studios, because they have acquired a lot of high-profile studios recently. So it makes sense to go from Microsoft Studios to Xbox Game Studios, because it shifts the focus into the gaming industry and kind of away from the parent company, because Phil Spencer has spent a lot of time using the term Xbox instead of Microsoft Xbox.
Yes.
Right? Like
it's a branding thing.
Yeah.
Much like when you think of Sony, like we mentioned, they have their different verticals, but PlayStation is PlayStation.
Right.
With Microsoft, they have a bunch of different verticals as well, and this is just more trying to establish Xbox is the brand. It's not the name of a particular console. The next Microsoft video game console won't be called something other than Xbox-ish. Just like there will never be a Sony console that is not a PlayStation something.
Right.
It's just kind of doubling down on that.
Yeah. And it makes sense that they would want to do that as their studio grows.
Sure.
And they want to kind of consolidate that stuff. So there's kind of a list here of some of the studios that they have acquired.
I more so just compiled this because almost all the studios have a game series that they either just launched or are currently working on.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton of like question marks, but I also wanted to walk through just because it's showing that, especially with a lot of these recent acquisitions, like Microsoft is on par with Sony in terms of talented first-party studios.
Yeah.
Because Sony, for years and years and years, has had a better stable of studios with more variety. People can argue that they like Halo and Gears more than anything Sony has put out, and that's totally fine. That's subjective. But objectively, Sony has had more larger AAA first-party studios than Microsoft, and that's no longer the case.
Right.
So now that obviously Bungie is no longer with Microsoft and haven't been for a while, they have 343, which owns the Halo series. They have the Coalition, which now that Epic isn't working on those, the Coalition is the new Gears series.
Yes.
Or Gears developer. Compulsion Games, who they acquired, who did We Happy Few. The Initiative, which was when they did that announcement about all the studios they acquired, this was their brand new studio, so we don't know what they're working on.
I think this is the studio that it was rumored. Like there were some the phrasing of how they talked about it. It led me to believe that the Initiative is working on a new Fable game. I believe this is the studio. He said, and they're here to work on to bring one of our great franchises back or something to that effect.
Right.
It was kind of like a throwaway line in the middle of a speech that I feel like not a lot of people picked up on, but I was like, maybe it means Fable.
Yeah, that could be true. They have In Exile, who do the Wasteland and Bard's Tale series. Mojang, obviously, who does Minecraft. Ninja Theory, who they recently acquired, who did the DMC game. They put out Hellblade last year, 2016, I don't remember. But, or I guess last year was 2018 at this point. Obsidian, who they acquired, who is doing the Outer Worlds, obviously famous for Fallout New Vegas and the Pillars of Eternity games. Playground and Turn 10, who are the two studios that kind of go back and forth on the Forza series. Rare, who they've had forever, who like they were doing nothing with, and then they did the Rare replay, and then Sea of Thieves, which was a huge disappointment, but maybe Rare will put stuff together. And then Undead Labs, who just put out State of Decay. And then their second party kind of indie publishing arm, Microsoft Global Publishing, who is responsible for putting out like Ori and the Blind Forest. They did Rise when the system launched, et cetera, et cetera. So really solid stable of large and small first party studios working on stuff.
And diverse, so, really diverse.
Like, yeah,
genre,
just exciting to see. Exciting to see kind of where they go from here. Like I just walked through, a lot of these studios have an associated series that they will continue to work on, but you have to imagine a couple other new IP will come from some of these folks.
Yeah.
I would hope.
Probably the biggest, craziest thing about Microsoft recently is that they announced Xbox Live for the Nintendo Switch and mobile platforms.
Right.
They are looking to connect players between iOS, Android, Switch, Xbox, and any game in the Microsoft Store on Windows. So you could potentially launch an Xbox Live app from your Nintendo Switch sometime in the future, which is nuts.
Details are kind of scarce. It was more just like a co-branded announcement on it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see kind of the details and how it shakes out and if it's as cool as it might sound. The bigger takeaway from me was this is just yet another example of like Microsoft and Nintendo working together and Sony not being included.
Right.
Which is like similar to the cross-play, blah, 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 all that kind of crap. It's probably both of these things, but one, Sony, they're the market leader. They don't feel like they need to do this stuff to stay the market leader. And then number two, Microsoft realizing, hey, we're way behind this generation, and Nintendo always being behind, or like being in a separate category almost, but them also trying to have partnerships to build their kind of total addressable market. Those two working together, it's the second and third place teams working together to take down the first place team. So it's probably both of those things. The first one, Sony being kind of cocky, is the scarier thing as a fan of their ecosystem. That certainly worries me. Not that like I want Sony to be on top every generation. I don't particularly care as long as they make the games I want them to make. But this like resting on your laurels thing is something they did coming out of the PlayStation 2 era, which really hurt them early in PS3 in their marketing and their pricing and their games and everything else. So I don't want to see them repeat the same problems again.
Right, and I have to believe, well, I have to hope that Sony's lack of communication and kind of more reserved public appearances lately are leading up to something big, some sort of a big coordinated effort or announcement. I have to hope and believe that, because the alternative is things don't look great. So you have to hope that this is intentional and not because things are kind of rotting from the inside out. So yeah, this kind of the Microsoft Nintendo thing has kind of implications for, I think, the industry as a whole going forward. Just that, these companies are willing to work together and come to and like share their player bases, right? Like, I think that's a really fascinating idea going into the future, kind of uniting the player bases. I think that's an interesting idea. And then just kind of Nintendo proper, I have a few small things. They have announced a Dr. Mario World mobile game coming this summer. So they have two, essentially. Nintendo has two mobile games that are upcoming. So Mario Kart World Tour is a mobile game. It got delayed into 2019. Not sure really when. But they also have this Dr. Mario World, which they just like tweeted out an announcement about it. They don't really have much of anything to show. It's just an image with a logo. So I have no idea what that'll be like. I'm assuming it's probably something more puzzle game oriented, because that's what the old Dr. Mario games were like. They were Tetris like, weren't they?
Yeah, it was like color matching sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm not super interested in that, but I know puzzle games perform very well on mobile, so if that's something that excites you.
And they're not trying to like do something other than what makes sense. Like that kind of game makes sense for mobile. They're not trying to change the property and make it something bigger or different than it needs to be. These kinds of games are the games that I would want to play on mobile. Right. Not something, not like a shooter. Like I don't want to play a shooter on mobile.
Right. Yeah, me neither. And then the Super Mario movie, which is being made by the Minions studio, Illumination.
Yikes.
They're aiming for a release in 2022. Shigeru Miyamoto is producing the film, so you can kind of keep an eye on it. And
I'm not convinced that he's actually going to be really doing anything. I feel
like they just put his name on it to make people feel better.
100%. He'll get a paycheck, which is nice for him, but I don't. And to be honest, I think it would be irresponsible for him to have a ton of say in the direction of the movie because he doesn't make movies. Yeah. So,
Furukawa said in an interview, this is part of a movement within the company to bring their IPs to more people. So it is likely that we will see familiar Nintendo IPs kind of crossing medias in the near future, which is interesting to see how that shakes out and what that'll be like.
It feels like the company is trying to modernize itself a little bit.
Yeah.
Like even just all of its partnerships on mobile games is something new for Nintendo. And just the way that they've structured their digital Nintendo Directs the last several years, a lot of it just feels like they're trying to be a little more transparent, get a little ahead of the message a little bit more. Obviously, announcing a movie that's 4 years away is a bit crazy, but this is an example of them trying to say, like, we're doing stuff differently than we have in the past. We're not going to be this closed ecosystem the way we were for the past 30 years.
Yeah, well, that closed ecosystem is very typical of, Eastern culture, business culture.
Yeah, but you see, their direct competitor, Sony, has gotten away from that a long time ago. So it's just that's more what I'm saying.
Yeah. Sony did, westernize itself a lot more in terms of how they communicate. And Nintendo is very archaic in those terms.
Nintendo's always felt very out of touch when it comes to certain things, like their online structure, the way that like friend codes, like all that. It's just like, what? There are so many examples of companies doing this successfully. Why are you trying to not do that? It just decisions that do not make sense. And it looks like from a high level perspective, they're trying to do things to change that culture of the company and how they're perceived.
Yeah, which is important. So we'll kind of see how all that shakes out. There's also a rumor that Nintendo is to release a revised version of the Switch this fiscal year, which is counter to what we kind of chatted about last episode.
Yeah. And that's what they said. Like, granted, this is still a rumor. Yeah. What they said was, we are not lowering the price. We are not putting out a new Switch model this year. We're still committed to hitting our revenue,
but they
our
did
sales
say
numbers
this year. So
fair enough,
because this is this fiscal year, which runs into 2020. We're talking about. So I could see they could do a little tap dance around some of that wording.
Still weird,
in a crappy
still
way.
Weird messaging.
Yes. So Nikkei, a Japanese financial newspaper, reported that sometime between April 1st and March 31st, which is the fiscal year, a new model of the Switch will be released. Not many details given, of course, because it's just kind of like a rumor report. Other than it will be more focused on the handheld functionality, which I think makes sense if they're looking to phase out the 3DS models and go all in on the Switch infrastructure. They want to get those 3DS people over onto their new platform in a way that kind of they want to kind of aggregate those two consumer bases in kind of a half measure where they still get all their fun handheld games in a portable way, but then they will also have access to this larger console quality library. So it makes sense that they would want to, combine the two markets that they have. Interested to see how that, like, what that Switch is. Like, does it not come with a dock? Is it a slimmer profile, smaller screen? If you make the screen smaller, does that mean you have to make the Joy-Cons smaller? Because holy hell! Or are there even Joy-Cons?
Do they even come off? Or is it just does it look like a 2DS where it's just a flat piece of technology?
Right. Does it just have like the gizzards of a Switch, but in a new shell? Can it dock? Can you buy a dock separately if you decide, hey, that's what I want now? Is that something that they're capable of doing? Will it have the same quality of screen? Who knows? That's an interesting exercise in thought.
The fear for me, which granted, this is all speculation. We don't even know that this is happening whatsoever, much less what form it will take. But the fear for me would be that despite them saying all the same Switch experiences will be available on both versions of the console, they have to have both versions of the console in mind when they make the game.
Right.
So if it can't dock, that means every game needs to still work really well only in handheld mode. Like that, and if the Joy-Cons don't come off, they need to take away the motion control stuff. Like, it's just, there are a lot of potential implications of a new version of the console that isn't just a smaller, cheaper one. Which, when you look at what Microsoft and Sony do, they just make smaller, cheaper versions of the same console. With this, that we're talking about potentially a new way that you were interacting with the console, which means that everything that's made has to have both those things in mind, and that gets complicated.
Yeah, it does. Or, if you buy this version of the Switch, you have to know that, hey, I won't get full access to this entire library.
And I mean, granted, they did that with the 3DS and the 2DS and 3DS XL.
They made the new 3DS where only certain games worked to the new 3DS.
And that, I mean, the response to that was terrible, as it should have been.
Yeah.
And again, that was an example of like Nintendo fundamentally not getting it. So hopefully that's not something that's not a mistake that they would repeat, because that would be a crazy mistake to repeat. So we shall see.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all the news. I mean, that was a lot of news, but that's all of it.
There's a whole heck of a lot of news.
Thank you for compiling that, because there's no way I would have been able to do that this morning as I'm setting up my computer. Just the fact that I was able to set up my computer is a big accomplishment for me. I set it up, and it wasn't working, and I troubleshooted it and figured out how to fix it, and that is not something that I would have anticipated I was going to be able to do. So, patting myself on the back for knowing how to computer. Okay, so let's do a quick Hate of the Week. Hate of the Week. So in speaking about my new commute and how it sucks, there was one morning where there was a slight drizzle in Atlanta. And instead of it taking me 50 to 60 minutes to get to work, it took me 90 minutes to get to work.
Ugh.
Because people driving in the rain here, it's like the apocalypse is happening when it's raining. No one goes more than like 40 miles an hour, even on the highway. Everyone is like brake checking everything and like trying to scoot in and out of each other even more than normal. It's just like people do not know what to do. And it is unbelievably frustrating. And we were originally supposed to get some snow last week, and I am so thankful we did not, because if we got snow, it would be the end of the world here. Like, people would be murdering each other in the streets because they don't know how to drive. It's like, it's unbelievable, man. So yeah, people driving in the rain in Atlanta. It's not good. But that's going to do it for this episode, other than something that we don't hate. So I will say that despite my new commute and the moving and the unpacking that still needs to happen and the cleaning of our old place that needs to happen, I do really like our new place. And one of the biggest reasons I like our new place is that in order to let my dog out, all I need to do is open the back door. We have a great big backyard that's fenced in, which is one of the reasons. It was like one of our check boxes on getting a house. So he can go out and do his business. He can run around. He can sniff. And I still go back there with him sometimes just to walk around and throw the ball a little bit. But like if it's like late at night or raining or really cold, I don't even have to go outside to let him go and do his business. And it's glorious.
I don't even know what that would have been like, having to like go out with Harry every time.
Yeah.
That sounds awful.
Yeah.
And you don't have to
4 times a day.
You don't have to pick up his poops anymore, dude.
Well, we didn't pick up his poops before either because we were in the woods.
Oh, okay.
And we just let him go in the woods, like down the hill. That wasn't a worry. That's the only thing with it now is like I am always a little afraid going in the backyard because I don't want to like step on a pile of shit. So we're going to have to figure something out.
You have yard work shoes like I do. That's what you have now.
Oh, damn.
Who cares?
We need to buy a lawnmower.
Yep.
Shit. Ugh.
Yep. And guess what? Now that you have a lawnmower, you have to get gas for it. You have to remember to get gas for it. You have to mow the lawn, Shea.
I've made a huge mistake.
You have.
As they would say in Arrested Development.
Well, today I don't hate all of the good games that are on the horizon. Right?
Yeah.
We got Metro coming out this week. Got Anthem.
Wait, really?
Metro's the 15th, I think.
Oh, man.
Yeah, dude.
I'm never going to finish 2018 games.
And then there's Anthem. When does Anthem come out? That's like...
At the end of the month.
Okay.
I think it's like the 22nd.
Okay, so the next week. And then there's Division in March. I think The Sinking City in March was the kind of Cthulian thing. Then there's Days Gone in, I think, April. And then Rage in May.
Yep. Plus, Crackdown comes out next week.
Yeah.
Which I don't care, but it's a big game. Far Cry New Dawn comes out next week, which, again, don't care, but it's happening. Devil May Cry 3 is in March.
Right.
Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is in March, which I figured you'd be interested in.
I'm going to take a break from Souls-likes for a bit.
Okay. Mortal Kombat 11 comes out in April, which I don't care about, but it's another big game. So, lots of, interesting games. There are no, I wouldn't consider any of those games to be the thing, except for maybe Rage 2 is the closest of the huge tentpole releases.
Sure.
But a lot of that next tier down releases in the first several months, which is kind of surprising. I feel like the games industry is moving a little more, and maybe it's just because games keep getting delayed, which is why we're seeing a lot more new releases early in the year, and then you still get the summer slump.
Yeah. Presumably Animal Crossing this summer. Presumably.
Okay, that's a great summer game.
Yes.
That's another thing. We actually have a back porch right now, or what's it? Is it a porch? The wood is porch, right? I feel like patio is on the first level.
Well, a porch is suspended in some way. A patio is ground level.
And that's because our house is a split level, so our quote-unquote first floor is half a level up, and the quote-unquote basement is half a level down, and we're also... Our backyard is a down slope, so our porch, you exit from the top level, but it's a full story above the ground.
Right.
There's a full set of stairs down, so it's it looks a little weird, but it's nice sized, and it's not gross and facing a woods the way that our patio at our apartment was, where it just got disgusting, just spider webs and leaves and shit everywhere, and we never wanted to be out there. This is actually nice, and we'll sit out there when the weather gets good, and I'll sit out there and read and play Switch and shit. So that'll be really cool.
Watch your daughter roll down the hill over and over again.
Yeah, totally, absolutely,
doing irreparable damage to her ability to have her inner ear fluid balance.
Kelly will be down there with her.
Yeah.
She can deal with it. It'll be fine. Kids are resilient.
It's true. They're made of iron.
Mostly water, but yeah, there's some iron in the water. All right, well that's a podcast. So I'm sure next episode we're still gonna be talking a shit ton about Kingdom Hearts, but we should also have some talk about Metro. Will Anthem have come out? Maybe we'll be talking about Anthem.
Yeah,
we should be talking about Anthem. Some other stuff. So yeah, some games. Games are releasing. But that's going to do it for this episode. Episode 44. We're getting close to 50. I still need to figure out the YouTube situation so I can upload videos on YouTube. That's still a goal before episode 50, but we'll get there. But thanks everybody for listening. Kyle, as always, thank you for joining.
Yeah.
And we'll be back in episode 45 with some more video games and movies and television and books and comics and news and hates and other shit that matters. Yeah.
I was like, when's it
talking about
coming?
Branding
when's
today.
It coming?
Talking about branding. That's something I have great pride in that tagline. I think it's a good fucking tagline. Because I made it.
Because you thought it up. Yep.
It's good. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.